Here I am. Almost forgot to turn it on again. So once again, good evening and welcome to the meeting for November 25th. I'm calling the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. In response to COVID, we continue to hold council meetings electronically. We invite members of the public to participate in the council meeting by accessing the YouTube channel. And also tonight we have the Committee of Adjustment and public meetings for planning items, and that will start at 7 o'clock. There are no additions to the agenda, so I will ask for any disclosures of pecuniary interest.
Madam Mayor, I will be declaring a pecuniary interest in the Ettrick Drain Report. I have filed the necessary paperwork with the clerk to do that, so I do declare that.
Thank you very much. And seeing none others, then we'll move to delegations, presentations, and petitions. First tonight we have Mike DeVos from Spreed and Associates, and he's going to give us a report on the Ettrick Municipal Drain. I can't see. There he is. I see you. Are we?
Good.
There we go. Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you. Would you like me to start the presentation?
If you're ready, go ahead.
Yes. This report was prepared in accordance with Section 78 of the Drainage Act for repair and improvement to the existing Ettrick Drain. It was originally constructed in 1963 and had a main drain and several branches. The requests are in an area closer to the main drain in the area of the intersection with Hyde Park Road. There is an Idison branch and a Kennedy branch that serve the portion of the watershed east of the main drain, and it was requested that we look at taking the Idison branch that is east of the old railway that was there and taking it westerly into the main drain. In 1963, they did show the Idison branch going all the way down to the main, similar to what was requested, but there was a revised report at that time that showed a new drain running along the east side of the railway, parallel to the main drain. It was most likely due to the fact that the railway must have had quite an expense to reconstruct that culvert, so they decided not to do that and have the ditch on the east side of the railway. But it would be better for everybody involved, especially now that the railway doesn't exist anymore, to have one drain heading north from the road to the Oxbow drain. So because of the situation changing over time and the original situation not being quite what people would have done without the railway there, we have the opportunity to make changes and improvements. As well, we were also asked at the on-site meeting to investigate the Kennedy branch. It is a tile branch, not a large watershed, but again, 1963, there was issues reported with the flow and the condition, the size and the depth. We did do an investigation of all the requests and found them, especially with the rerouting of the channel, to be feasible. There was approval granted from the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority on that, with some guidance to look at the main drain downstream from an increased flow perspective. We did find on the Kennedy branch that there, again, due to its age and its size, it is undersized by today's standards. We did price and come up with a design for an improvement. Through review with the owners on an informal basis with some of the proposed work, it was requested that we not proceed with the improvement to the Kennedy branch, but just do a little bit of maintenance down near the bottom end, closer to the road. There's some root issues, from tree root issues, that would be repaired along with the catch basin at Hyde Park Road. So most of that work was dropped out of the proposal. And then we were also asked to look at what the cost would be for dropping or adding different items dealing with the relocation of the water down to the main drain. So we did do some additional work to investigate that for the costs. It was decided as well at that time where the landowner would want to do a lot of the backfilling of the old ditch by himself and haul the material over to save costs. So in our report, we are recommending that the Idison branch, the open ditch from the old railway down to the main, be reconstructed and improved, and then the old railway branch that ran along the east side of the railway be abandoned from municipal status and left for the owner to do some of the backfilling themselves. So we did cut down on some of the work that's included in the report, but the landowner would have to take care of that work by themselves. So like I said, the material will be piled beside the channel, and the landowner would then have to truck it over, on their own at a later date. It was also requested that we install a new entrance culvert on the new reconstructed portion of the Idison branch to have access from 8 Mile up into the field. So there was an addition of that as well. And I think as far as that goes, I would stop and open up to questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Are there questions for the presenter? Councillor Arts.
Through your Madam Mayor, to Mr. DeVos, that Kennedy branch down in the future, if they decide they want to upgrade it, is the rest of the watershed assessed on that, or is that just the owners or the Kennedy branch? And the steel pipe that goes under the road, I think it's 450 mils, and I assume that's in good shape.
Yes, it's the tributary area for that Kennedy branch would be the properties that would be assessed in the future. We did do the design and we did some costing, so there's some information that could be utilized, but it would require a new report at a later date whenever that was decided to proceed. But I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 properties that would be involved with that branch. And you mentioned the existing tile underneath the road right now would be an older, probably a 12-inch CSP. We had designed a new 18-inch diameter sewer pipe, but currently it would be a CSP across there, and I don't believe it's been videoed, so I don't know its condition.
Thank you.
Are there other questions? I don't see any. In that case, there is a motion before us that the Council for the Municipality of Middlesex Centre receives the Ettrick Drain Report from Mike DeVos of Street Associates dated June 18th, 2020, and authorizes that the project proceed, and that the quarter revision be scheduled for January 6th, 2021. Yes. And further, that Councillor Arts and Mayor DeVete be appointed along with Amanda Stratton of the City of London Court of Revision to sit as members of the Court of Revision, with the Mayor being the chair. Is there a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Arts, seconded by Councillor Shipley. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Is Councillor Silva voting?
I voted in favor. That's fine.
Thank you. All right. So thank you very much, Mr. DeVos, and we'll see you next time then. Oh, we've got the Court of Revision if you're staying for that. No.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And no, I was not going to stay for that unless, there was a reason for it. I was not notified of any appeals in advance. So I would need to be, get myself prepared if there is anything that would be added. But to my knowledge, there are no appeals. So
Appeals received. Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. So
okay,
we need now.
okay, good night.
Good night. We'll see you next time. We need to adjourn council. So we have a motion that council adjourn its regular meeting in order to sit as the Court of Revision under Section 97 of the Drainage Act as amended to consider the Colbert Municipal Drain 2020 with members Amanda Stratton from the City of London Court of Revision, Councillor Arts, and Mayor DeVete. We'll have a mover, please, and a seconder. Councillor Heffernan and Deputy Mayor Brennan, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. I'm just looking to see. There we are. Good evening, Amanda. Hello. The Court of Revision will proceed as follows. We're calling the meeting to order. And with respect to the order of appeals, we have none that have been received. Are there any questions from the members of the committee? Any questions from you, Ms. Stratton?
My only question was just whether any appeals had been received after the agenda was posted or after the deadline, and it sounds like not.
None received.
Okay.
Okay, in that case, we can move to a decision. We have a recommendation that the Court of Revision approves the schedule. So we'll make that motion, and then we'll also include a motion to adjourn in that. We're doing it all as one, okay, Amanda? Okay. So the motion is that Middlesex Centre Court of Revision approves the schedule of assessment for the Colbert Municipal Drain 2020 adopted by Bylaw 2020 number 81 and drainage works as outlined in the report prepared by Spreed Associates. And that the Court of Revision is hereby adjourned and that the Council for the Municipality of Middlesex Centre resume the November 25th, 2020 meeting of Council. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Arts and Councillor Scott, all in favor? And that's carried. Oh, and Councillor Silva? And okay, that's everyone then, thank you. So we are now back in the regular session. The first item we have to take care of is the adoption of minutes. Hearing no errors or omissions, I'll ask that the minutes of the Middlesex Centre Emergency Special Council meeting held on the 12th of November 2020 be adopted as printed. Councillor Scott and Councillor Heffernan, all in favor? And everyone is, thank you very much. Moving to the consent agenda, we have items 7.1 through 7.9. Is there anything here anyone would like to pull or speak to? Councillor?
Yeah, I just had a question on the building report. It's not specifically on the building report, and I'm not sure if it's Arnie or Rob or Scott, maybe all of them. With the explosive growth we have, is there going to be a problem in the near future keeping up with the infrastructure of this explosive growth? Like, I know it's good for the tax base and that, but it also comes at a cost of services. And I'm just wondering, at the rate we're going, is this going to cause some problems for infrastructure? And I'm not sure if any of them want to comment on that or not.
Well, probably Rob is going to jump in. Okay, do you want to jump in, Rob? And Arnie, if you want to chime in if there's anything additional?
Sure, yep, through you, Madam Mayor. No, it's a good question, Deputy Mayor. The infrastructure that's in place, the level of development that's in place, like the larger subdivisions, when those draft plans would have been approved, the servicing levels would have been reviewed as part of those approvals. So I'm thinking like full build out of Timberwalk and Clear Skies. And then some of the ones in Kilworth, Kamoka. That future development beyond that, that's where we really need to start, I guess, looking at the servicing constraints and planning for the servicing expansion that's going to be required for that. So that's definitely, I guess, at the forefront of us moving forward, and part of why we're undertaking the master servicing plan in 2021.
Any other questions for staff? Councillor Arts.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I believe this question would be for Scott. The Ontario Trillium Fund for that playground equipment, it says new equipment. Does that mean there's nothing there, or what's, I guess, what new, is it new or just new, or it's, okay.
Yep, through the mayor, it is brand new equipment. However, it is replacing an existing piece of equipment. So we did an inspection of all our play structures about 2 years ago. So we had a priority list as to which ones need to be replaced at certain times. So Deerhaven is on the books for 2021 to be completed, to replace the existing unit and the base infrastructure that is there. Unfortunately, the Trillium grant is now open for application. So that's what we're applying for, is to do that project.
I don't know. Good. Anything else for staff? Okay, I don't see anything. So the motion before us is that items 7.1 through 7.9 found under the consent agenda for the 25th of November 2020 be adopted as recommended. A mover, Deputy Mayor Brennan and Councillor Shipley. All in favor? And that's everyone. Thank you. Alrighty, moving on to staff reports. We have two here, and the first one up is the Emergency Management Program from our chief.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to council, before you is a report regarding the modernization of our municipal emergency response program, and specifically the plan itself and the subsequent bylaws. The external version is attached, and I'm sure everybody had a chance to look it over really quickly. This plan summarizes subtle modifications that we made pertaining to our reaction to significant events in the municipality, general process, various duties by position, and the hierarchical structure. The plan also has been given a pretty big facelift. The way is easier to follow, hyperlinks, page reconstruction, and most importantly, the overall harmonization with the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act. I'm asking council to consider repealing the 3 older bylaws and adopt their replacements. The older bylaws being 2006-084 and 2008-006, which require that the municipality enact an emergency response program and plan, and bylaw 2009-100, which serves to appoint a community emergency management coordinator and an alternate. At this point, I'm more than happy to address any questions.
Thank you. Questions for Chief Tom? Councillor Heffernan.
Through the mayor, it's to Colin. It's not really a question. It was very thorough. I was very impressed with reading through it all, and it took me to almost the end to find the armed forces. And I was glad to see that they were included, because in a previous emergency many, many years ago, the armed forces did come in when we were stranded at Medway because of a bad storm. The armed forces came in from London to bring us blankets, and some of you people will remember that. That's so thanks, Colin.
Yes, thank you for the walk down memory lane. Are there other questions? Okay, thank you for that report. The motion before us is that report FS 06-2020 regarding emergency management program modernization be received, and that council authorize the repeal of bylaws 2006 number 84, 2008 number 6, in order to pass a bylaw that requires the municipality to enact emergency management program for the protection of public safety, health, the environment, the critical infrastructure and property, and to promote economic stability and disaster resilient community, and to adopt an emergency management program for the Corporation of Municipality Middlesex Centre. And further that council authorized the repeal of bylaw 2009, number 100, in order to adopt a bylaw to appoint a community emergency management coordinator, that is a CEMC, and alternate for the Corporation of Municipality of Middlesex Centre. Do I have a mover? Councillor Shipley and Councillor Scott, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Next up, we have the updated community improvement plan, and I'll ask our CAO, Michael, to present, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through the chair, I'm just happy to report to council on the updated community improvement plan. Earlier in the year, a report was provided to council in regards to undertaking an initiative to look at reviewing our current CIP. And this was partially funded through the Middlesex Economic Resiliency Task Force as a recommendation to help support our community businesses. So that task was undertaken, and included in your report is the results of the updated CIP. There's two objectives that were accomplished in this review. The first objective was to look at expanding the area beyond the community of Ilderton. And the second objective was to look at the existing incentives that are in a CIP in accordance with the Planning Act, and looking at what other incentives could be helpful for our area businesses. So in the document, we've maintained the current incentives, but there's also new incentives that have been added, including money support to help businesses during a health crisis, money to offset funds related to accessibility expenses, and looking at offsetting fees, permit fees, development fees to help new businesses develop in our municipality. The only other item I'd have to say on this is that as part of the process, the document is also shared with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs for review. It's a requirement. And once they're done their analysis, a bylaw will be brought forward with the document. There may be a few refinements, but all in all, the document is ready to go. It's been shared with our lower tier municipality partners, our other municipalities, and looking forward to implementing this in the new year to help our business community.
Thank you for that report. Are there questions on the CIP? I'm not seeing any. I'm glad we've got this done, and that we have a program to go across the whole municipality now. So we can move forward. I think that'll be a good thing for everyone. So thank you for that. There's a motion before us that report CAO number 44, 2020 regarding updated community improvement plan for Middlesex Centre be received, and that the updated community improvement plan for Middlesex Centre appended to report CAO 4, 2020 be approved, and further that staff be directed to prepare bylaw to adopt a new community improvement plan for Middlesex Centre. Could I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Heffernan and Councillor Scott. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Okay. Yeah, so we can jump down to our correspondence. Yeah, so we will come back to the timed items. Item 11 on your agenda is correspondence. There are a number of bits here. Maybe before we start on any of the other items, Deputy Mayor Brennan had received correspondence that he wanted to share. If you want to do that now, then we can move to the other things.
I had an email sent regarding Hillside kennels.
Deputy Mayor Brendan, can you turn on your microphone, please?
This letter relates to Hillside Kennels and a situation where a dog was found, and quite a bit of talk going on. But the email I received was, I'm not sure if you've heard about the very large dog that showed up at our house, our home farm. I contacted Hillside to catch and remove him, which they promptly did. He was in very bad shape and wouldn't have lasted much longer. They provided him with proper care and nursed him back to health. Anyways, because of some drama surrounding this dog, I thought I would offer insight to my dealings with Hillside Kennels. They were quick to reply, arrived on time, and secured this very large dog professionally. They also gave our family updates on the dog's health. I can only comment on what I know, but they did an excellent job with this dog. So that's a good news story about our animal control officer. So I just thought I'd like to, because of all the sometimes negative stuff going on, I thought I'd like to pass it on to all of council. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. Are there any questions for Deputy Mayor on that? None? Okay. We have a number of correspondence items. Does anyone want to ask or bring forward any of these for comment? Councillor Heffernan?
Yeah, I was, through the mayor, I was reading through them, and basically from what I'm getting here is that this was kind of put through without consultation with the conservation authorities, and obviously there's a lot of concern about it. And one of the things that I read was actually in the Free Press, and Ian Wilcox of the Upper Thames made the comment that it's one thing for the authorities to be in the municipalities, but the watershed runs in and out of a municipality, and so the conservation authority basically takes care of the whole thing instead of just what's there. So I would like to have staff respond to this with, I think there was a number of items attached to each of these correspondence, and I would like Middlesex Center to also go in on the reports.
Thank you for raising that. I'll just comment before I turn it over to staff. I agree with you completely. I think we pay dues to 5 conservation authorities. If you've looked at Section 6 pieces, we'll be negotiating agreements with 6 different providers of service because they manage different watersheds in our municipality. As Councillor Heffernan has said, there's a whole list of question marks. There has been consultation. Our staff, as I recall, Rob was at the meeting. I attended the meeting. Michael's attended some of the meetings. There's been extensive consultation, and I guess, well, the easy black and white way of saying it is it doesn't appear that a lot of the consultation has been taken very seriously. And I know that at AMO, we've discussed this as well. And I'll know more after Thursday night when we have our next board meeting and Friday, that what the response of AMO will be. But the feeling across, I think, most of the province is that input was given. It doesn't appear to have been heard. There are serious concerns about various aspects, as you'll see, even the composition of the board. There's question about, normally a board is responsible for the organization that they're doing the work for. You take your councillor hat off when you sit at that board. That is, you're an informed participant, but you're not pushing the agenda of municipal business there. So there's a whole list there, as you probably read. When I reached out to staff, the answer was we're already working on it, and I'll let Michael explain all of the work that's been done to now, and also he'll highlight what kinds of actions or steps we can take, and we can decide how we want to move forward after that presentation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, leading up to publishing the agenda, the number of conservation authorities did reach out to staff, and as we are sifting our way through the information and analyzing it, we thought it would be in the best interest of council if they wish to pass a recommendation that affords us an opportunity to respond back as Councillor Heffernan asked. So we started drafting correspondence already that's ready to go to Minister Urick. That speaks to requesting that the MECP remove Schedule 6 from this omnibus bill because we think that through the consultation, as the mayor said, that's taken place, and then for all of a sudden to throw into a schedule of a large bill automatic changes that would restructure and create a lot of uncertainty is not something that we think is beneficial for our CAs and in the long run for the municipalities. So if the council would like, we can certainly take a recommendation to provide direction to follow through and review the schedule and provide correspondence to the minister requesting that this be independent and the conversation be restarted so that proper dialogue can take place and proper changes can take place with the partners.
Thank you. And just Schedule 6 is a section in that omnibus bill that refers to the CAs. So that's what it's that section. That's all that means. Okay. So thoughts, input, direction, feelings about which way we might go? Say, okay, go ahead.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, I heard from a resident also some concerns big time about it. And after reading all the letters coming through, I think it's pretty obvious that we also want to take a stand there and send them maybe a letter back. So, I would so move that.
Okay, so you're moving, I'm just putting words in your mouth right now, but given what your comment is, I think the motion would be to instruct staff to proceed with correspondence to Minister Urick, indicating that we would prefer to see section 6 removed for further consultation.
Yep, that's my goal. Yeah, that's my goal. I would move that anyway. And I think we need to do it in some urgent timing too by the sounds of it. So, yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, and a seconder? Councillor Shipley, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you, everyone. I think this is important that we give feedback and outline the concerns. I don't think anyone's against change or working on improving things. And I think that's exactly what we want to do by sending this letter, say we'll work on it going forward. Alrighty, so, we actually have to, on the wrong page here, receive our correspondence. I should put it back to my, you've got it there. Okay. So the recommendation for the correspondence is that correspondence items 11.1 through 11.5 listed on the November 25th council agenda be received for information. And, do I have to read the parts of the recommendation too? We've done that. Yeah, okay, so we're good. We decided what we're doing. If we could have a motion to receive, please. Councillor Scott, Deputy Mayor Brennan, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. How are we doing for time? Oops. Okay, so Deputy Mayor, Deputy Mayor Brennan, would you want to proceed with item 12, please?
Yes. I'll go through a couple things first and then we'll get it. Strathmere Lodge got an opportunity to receive $40,000. Strathmere Lodge has the opportunity to receive some one-time funding for $40,000 to hire a nurse to look after infection control, and with $19,000 being available on top of that for training. Now Strathmere already has a nurse that's more or less doing that, so they're perhaps only looking at the training aspect of it and to take the $19,000 to do some additional training for her. The Women's Caucus that was started a month ago held their first meeting, a virtual meeting, and they had some 81 people on that Zoom meeting that attended it, which included the minister too, who stayed on for the whole 2 hours. And our mayor is part of that. So I'm going to turn it over to her for a minute to give us a little further update on that.
Sure, my pleasure. Yes, we had the first Women's Caucus event on Monday afternoon. We created a program that included remarks from Lieutenant Governor Dodswell. And as John said, she came and not only did she give opening remarks, she stayed for the whole meeting and commented at the end on some of the work that we talked about. We did have 81 registrants. People came and went as their schedules allowed, but most of the time there were at least 50 people on the screen, I think, when I was looking at it. And we had a presentation that outlined some of the economic factors that impact on women. We talked about this she session and how jobs and the functions and roles and responsibilities that women take on with work also include a lot of the home duties and working from home and all those stresses and how that has changed and put pressure on families' structures. So that was Shauna's presentation. And then we moved on to an open forum, which included opportunities for everyone who was on the line to share stories about their experiences during COVID. And the range of topics was huge. We talked about using sick days, healthcare, elder care, home care. We talked about children and activities for them and opportunities, for learning and school and education. And so the topics were as broad and as diverse as, the age ranges and the marital statuses and the, children's status. Some people had little kids at home and others were empty nesters, looking after grandchildren like the range was really, really wide. And next steps, we want to take a look at all of the themes that we heard and then try and figure out what kinds of resources or programming or supports we can put in place for women in Middlesex County so that they have opportunities to work and have healthy relationships. Women's Resource Center came up, that was another part, and access to information to help with starting companies, getting jobs, economic help, programming for kids at schools, libraries, the whole, it covers everything. So I don't have any concrete steps to report at this time because we haven't had our debrief meeting. That'll happen first thing next week. But we're hoping that we're able to figure out more webinars or local programs or whatever. And we're hoping that we can encourage some of the people who are on the line to maybe, like if we decide that we need a committee on something, there'll be opportunities for residents to get involved and work on things too. So it's kind of hard to put 2 hours in a minute. And that's kind of an overview of what we did yesterday.
Well, thank you. And I must apologize.
And I should say thanks to Sean Lekowitz and all the women who worked on getting it done. We had help from county staff too. Morgan helped with, so all of the people.
As I was saying, I must apologize to the mayor. I spoke to her before the meeting. I said I had a couple things I was going to bring up. I didn't want to catch her off guard, but I forgot to mention about this one. So I did kind of catch her off guard when I asked her to report on that, but thank you for that report. Appreciate it. Uplink Wireless Incorporated is running some fiber optic lines up some county roads, Elgin Road and Westchester Bourne Road, from Elgin County up to the 401. So we agreed to let them use our road allowance for that. So there's some more infrastructure going in for high fiber optics there. The big thing that we had a report on was a payroll service, Optimus SBR service, to deliver a review of payroll services. Now, we have our own payroll services, and everybody's payroll service was analyzed across the county, and Middlesex Center had the highest mark you could possibly get, even higher what the county service was. They were below us. So our service that started, I believe, was in 2017 is when we undertook our current payroll system, which is a very important service because people need their paychecks on time right now. A lot of people are struggling, and if their paycheck's 2 or 3 days late, that causes problems for them. So we have a good system, and our staff is highly trained and got very high marks across the board. But I can't summarize this, so I've got Tiffany standing by. She's going to come on and explain this a little bit more efficiently for us. So Tiffany, if you're there, you can take it away. Thank you.
So through you, Mayor DeVete, with respect to Optimus SBR's review, they did look at all of the payroll services within the county of Middlesex, and all the municipalities were ranked between immature, reactive, controlled, managed, and strategic. And Deputy Mayor Brennan is correct. The municipality of Middlesex Center was rated as managed/strategic. So we did get the highest rating. We are one of the only municipalities that does have a fully, like a full payroll system. And it's not even just a payroll system, it's our human resource system as well. So Our system, we utilize Ceridian Dayforce, and the program itself, it starts at recruitment, then goes to onboarding, and then with the payroll services. And our employee policies are all incorporated into this. And in 2021, one of our new initiatives will be to add in a learning and training portal as part of that. So employees can go on and track their training, as many of us have specific requirements to keep for me, my CPA designation. And we have many that have licenses that need to keep up that training. So that'll be all tracked. So we're not only processing our payroll within it, there's so much more to it. The review done was the consultant started working with everybody in the summer. It did take some time. They didn't only meet with just myself. They met with our payroll team as well as different members of our municipality at all different levels to find out what their experiences were with our payroll system. And they did this at each municipality. Overall, our users did rate the system well, and one of the things that came out, and you'll notice in the consent reports, I did write a small report with respect to this project. And one of the things was doing kind of helpful cheat sheets, I would say, for any of our managers and supervisors for some of the things that they come across. So we do rotational scheduling here at the municipality. And it happens only a few times a year when our supervisors input those into the system. And at this time, they will reach out to our payroll and benefits coordinator to help them out. What they're suggesting is that we put together some easy cheat sheets so they can do it on their own. And we will prepare these for all of our employees to have on hand. However, we are the corporate services team as the internal and external customer service of the municipality. And I do find that the internal customer service that we do for our other departments and the managers and supervisors is vital. And Sean Miller is our employee in the payroll and benefits department is very helpful and always willing to lend a hand and teach somebody something new and help them through that process. So I don't know how much it'll be utilized, but it is a great point, and we'll make sure that we do it. The other things that came out of this review, one of the biggest is that the municipalities within the county all work together with the county as well as with each other. And this is something that Middlesex Center we've always been a part of. We will always help our neighbors out and answer any questions. And we've actually had one of the other municipalities come to view our payroll system to see how we utilize it and how it's working. So I'm not sure if they're going to be utilizing the same system, but I know they're in that process as well to review. And so we will assist other municipalities. However, at this time, that is the level that we will assist. But something may come to council if we look at taking on a service where we could provide payroll services to other municipalities. However, we're not at that point right now, but it is something that came out of this report as well, that some of the more managed, strategic, or controlled municipalities with their payroll services look at helping others out. But we do have to do what's best for our community and the taxpayers' dollars within this community. The other things that they mentioned was working together on a benefits package, which I think is a great idea, and the municipalities working together could get better costs. However, we are an ASO program, so if the other municipalities are not, we need to make sure that we're working around what is working for this municipality. And then also there's going to be a working group that is now developed where our payroll employees will now meet. It could be on a monthly or quarterly. We haven't decided and worked out those details. The municipal treasurers will be meeting in December to discuss this, and they would get together and also make sure that we're sharing our policies and procedures and anything that we can do to work as a group that we do, which I think is a great idea. And I think the municipalities within the county as well as the county should be working together. We do have a treasurer's group and a manager of finance / like deputy treasurer group happening in the county. So I don't see this being any different. I think it'll be very positive and like just benefit everybody. And that was it. They did do a detailed review for each individual municipality. So the plan coming out of this was that Optimus SBR would be presenting at the county council, which was yesterday, and then each of the municipalities would bring a report depending on what was recommended. Our municipality did not have very many recommendations. That's why I did choose to do a consent report to provide council with an update. Some who may be in an immature or reactive state might do something a little bit more extensive to let council know of how they're going to be addressing the risks or issues that came up throughout this review. And that would be it, if you have any other questions for me.
Does anybody have any questions for Tiff on that? Because she certainly explained it a lot better than I could have. I'd just like to say, Tiffany, thank you again. You and your staff on the leading edge of something for this municipality over everybody else in the county. We're very appreciative of that, and thank you very much to you and your staff. And that's pretty much the bulk of the county council update. Thank you.
Thank you for the update. And the time is now about 6:45. We're going to start the committee of adjustment at 7, so we can take a break, but please be back for 6:55 so we can start the video streaming properly and get all settled in. Okay, so we have roughly 10 minutes, I guess. Okay, thank you. motion have to be made publicly? Yes. Yes, that's what I thought. So we have to wait just a moment. How do you, I don't know. Oh, up there. Okay. Okay, we're live, but it's 6:58, so we need to wait till 7 o'clock to make the motion to go into Committee of Adjustment. And I see Derek is there, so he can jump right in. Oops, come back here. 1 minute and counting. Oops. Okay, it's 7 o'clock. I'll ask for a motion that council adjourn the regular meeting to sit as Committee of Adjustment under Section 45 of the Planning Act 1990 as amended to consider a number of minor variance applications. Councillor Scott and Councillor Arts, all in favor? And I'll turn it over to our chair, Councillor Silva.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will call this public meeting to order, please, and will note the following. Members of the public that are participating virtually in this evening's public meetings have previously provided notification to the municipal clerk in advance of the meeting. If anyone wishes to receive further notification on any of the minor variance applications being considered tonight, I ask that you please send an email to planning@middlesexcenter.on.ca requesting further notification. Please be advised that comments expressed and written material presented are a matter of public record for full disclosure. If you have questions on any of the applications being heard this evening, we ask that you direct those to the appropriate planner on file. In keeping with our procedural bylaw and our R-zone policy, I would remind all of our meeting participants to use respectful language and uphold our values of cooperation, trust, and openness. The order of proceedings is as follows. And it'll be the same for each planning application. First, the chair, myself, I will ask the planner to explain the purpose of the application and hearing to present the staff report. Then the municipal clerk will provide any additional comments received from circulated agencies and the public not included in the planning report. The applicant or their agent has the opportunity to speak to the application if they wish. Then the public will be asked for their comments and questions. Please ensure that you state your name and address so that comments can be reflected in the minutes. The committee may then ask questions of the applicant or staff, and then the chair will then consider motions regarding the applications. With that, let's get to application for minor variance A15-2020. Mr. Fitzgerald, if you please.
Through the chair, thank you. And to all members of the committee, I'm just going to throw that up there so everyone can see the site that we're referring to here. So the purpose and effect of the application for minor variance is to seek relief from the Middlesex Center Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw as it relates to the maximum permissible size of an accessory building in the urban residential first density zone. The applicant is requesting a maximum size for all accessory buildings on the land of 52.9 square meters or 570 square feet. Whereas the Middlesex Center Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw permits a maximum size of 50 meters squared or 538 square feet of a gross floor area or 3% maximum lot coverage, which in this case is 40.95 meters squared. The effect of the proposal is to facilitate the construction of an additional accessory building. The subject property, as seen here, is located at 59 Rivers Edge Lane in Kilworth. More specifically, it's located on the south side of Rivers Edge Lane, southwest of the intersection at Stephen Moore Drive in Rivers Edge Lane. The property has an area of approximately 1,360 square meters, or 0.34 of a hectare, acre, and is occupied by a single detached dwelling with an attached garage, an in-ground pool, and an accessory building or pool house. The applicant is proposing a new detached accessory building at the proposed size of 19.5 square meters or 210 square feet. The property is surrounded by residential development to the north, south, and west, and also backs onto the Thames River to the east. The land is designated settlement area in the county of Middlesex official plan, residential in the Middlesex Center official plan, and is zoned urban residential first density zone in the Middlesex Center comprehensive zoning bylaw. As noted, the applicant is requesting permission to exceed the maximum permissible size of an accessory building in the UR1 zone. The existing maximum permissible size based on the size of the lands is 40.95 square meters, which is 3% of the total gross floor area of lot coverage. Therefore, the applicant in this case is seeking a minor variance for an additional 11.59 square meters or 124.7 square feet. In the circulation of the application, planning staff did not receive any comments from the public or internal departments and agencies. Based on the analysis provided in the planning report, staff is of the opinion that the applicant's proposal meets the 4 tests of the minor variance stipulated in the Planning Act, as it's minor in nature, is appropriate and desirable for the neighborhood, and meets the general intent of both the official plan as well as the zoning bylaw. Planning staff are also of the opinion that there is no anticipated negative impacts to the adjacent properties, given the location of the proposed accessory building. Given the above, staff recommend that minor variance application A15/2020 be approved. And I'm also available to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, has there been any other comments received?
I can confirm that no additional comments have been made with respect to this application.
Terrific. Is the applicant or an agent on their behalf here to say, to add anything to the application?
Yes, I am here.
Hi, go ahead.
Hi. Sorry, we cut out there?
I said, go ahead.
Oh, no, I just wanted to thank everybody for considering our application. We were just trying to put a little sun gazebo to create a little shelter for our pool.
Terrific. Is there anyone from the public that registered to speak to this application?
Through the chair, I can confirm that there are no public registrants for this application.
All right. Anyone on the committee have any questions? I'm not seeing any hands. There is a recommended motion to approve the minor variance. Would someone like to make that motion? Mayor DeVete, seconded by Councillor Scott. All those in favor? That appears unanimous from here. All right. There is a 20-day appeal period for any of these minor variance applications, but staff will be in touch, I believe, with any next steps.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right. Application A17 2020. Mr. Fitzgerald, or I guess I'll say Cowboy Bill, please go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, again, I've shared my screen so everyone can see the location of the proposed minor variance. The purpose and effect of the application is to seek relief from the Middlesex Center's comprehensive zoning bylaw as it relates to the restriction for the placement of an accessory building in the front yard as per section 4.1 sub AII. The applicant is requesting to construct an accessory building which is partially located in the front yard beyond the front plane or forwardmost portion of the home, whereas the Middlesex Center comprehensive zoning bylaw does not permit accessory buildings to be erected closer to the front lot line than the main building or structure on the lot. And the effect of this proposal is to facilitate the construction of a detached garage. The subject property is located at 9878 Ilderton Road in Poplar Hill. More specifically, it's located on the north side of Ilderton Road, just north of the intersection at Ilderton Road and Egremont Drive. The property has an area of approximately 0.63 acres and is occupied by a single detached dwelling, a detached accessory building or shed, and a pool. The applicant is proposing to remove the existing accessory building and replace it with a new detached accessory building in the format of a detached garage. However, given the location of the existing pool and the proposed format and size of the garage, the applicant is requesting permission that a portion of the building be permitted to be placed beyond the forwardmost portion of the home, which does extend into the front yard. The property is surrounded by residential development to the east, south, and west, and an institutional use to the north. The lands are designated settlement area in the County of Middlesex official plan, hamlet by the Middlesex Center official plan, and are zoned hamlet residential exception HR 1-1 zone in the Middlesex Center comprehensive zoning bylaw. In circulation of the application, planning staff received one comment from a neighboring property, which was in support of the applicant's proposal. Additionally, staff did not receive any negative comments from internal departments or agencies. Based on the analysis provided in the planning report, staff is generally of the opinion that the applicant's proposal meets the 4 tests of minor variance stipulated in the Planning Act. As it is minor in nature, it's appropriate and desirable for the neighborhood and generally meets the intent of both the official plan as well as the zoning bylaw. Planning staff are also of the opinion that there's no anticipated negative impacts both to the adjacent properties or the existing right-of-way. Given the above, staff recommend that minor variance application A17-2020 be approved, which is subject to the conditions that the accessory building be placed in the same generalized location as shown in the attached plan, and that the accessory building meet the minimum front yard setback requirement in the zone. Thanks, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Based on what I see here, Mr. Bright, he has not registered to participate.
Through the chair, if I could quickly add, Mr. Bright has contacted us just before the meeting and has registered to participate. Mr. Bright is on the line and available to speak.
Terrific. Before that, Mr. Clerk, since you're on, no other comments received?
I can confirm no additional comments have been received for this application.
All right, Mr. Bright, you're up. You might need to unmute your microphone. Okay. Mr. Bright, while you see if you can troubleshoot that, let's we'll move on and circle back if we need to. Doesn't look like any public members have requested to participate. Committee, do you have any questions? Deputy Mayor Brennan, please go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, to the planner, can you, I'm looking at the location map, and I can't see where the pool's located. It seems to be quite a depth to this lot that would allow the garage to be moved back so it's not sticking out front. But they said something about the pool was in the way, and I don't see where the pool is located. On my map, it doesn't really show a pool. Is it directly behind where the garage would be going, and that's why they can't move it back?
Through the chair to Deputy Mayor, yes, that's correct. So the existing pool is located basically right in front of where the new proposed location for the garage is. If I can, just give me 1 second and I can pull up a plan that kind of shows it a bit better.
Yeah, I've got it now, Dan, thank you. I went to the other map and I see where the pool is located now. You
kind of see it there on your screen there, Deputy Mayor. It's located right behind where the proposed location is for the detached garage.
Yeah, the existing garage they're tearing down though, is that correct?
Through the chair of the deputy mayor, yes, that's correct. The existing shed that they have, or pool house that they use, will be removed from the lands and replaced with the new accessory building.
So virtually, yeah, okay. All right, that's good then. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Bright was able to type, said he was having some technical difficulties. He doesn't have anything to add. So are there any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, we heard the recommendation to approve. Is there a mover for that? Mayor DeVete, seconded by Councillor Scott. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. Approved. Same caveat, Mr. Bright, 20-day appeal period, but considering you didn't have any opposition tonight, I imagine that will go smoothly for you. Okay, final minor variance application, A16 2020. Mr. Fitzgerald.
Through the chair, sorry, I was on mute there. So thanks again, members. The application that you have here before you tonight is a minor variance which seeks relief from the Middlesex Center Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw as it relates to the maximum permissible size of an accessory building in the urban residential first density exception UR1-3 zone. The applicant is requesting a maximum size for accessory buildings on the lands of 42.9 meters squared, whereas the Middlesex Center Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw permits a maximum size of 50 meters squared or 538 square feet, or a 3% of total lot coverage, whichever is lesser. For the subject lands, 3% of lot coverage would be 25.3 meters squared or 272.45 square feet, which necessitates a minor variance of 17.6 meters squared for the applicant's proposal. The effect of the proposal is to facilitate the construction of an accessory building or covered deck in the rear of the property. The subject property is located at 9 Barron Crescent in Kilworth. More specifically, it's located on the south side of Barron Crescent, southwest of the intersection at Barron Crescent and Earls Court Terrace. The property has an area of approximately 843.7 meters squared and is occupied by a single detached dwelling with an attached garage and a detached accessory building or shed in the back corner. The property is surrounded by residential development. The land is designated settlement area in the County of Middlesex official plan, residential in the Middlesex Center official plan, and zoned urban residential first density exception UR1-3 zone in the zoning bylaw. As noted, the applicant is requesting permission to build a new detached accessory building, which is in the format of an outdoor covered deck at a proposed size of 33.6 meters squared or 362.5 square feet. Given the size of the property, the existence of a 100 square foot shed in the corner, and the proposed size of the new covered deck, the applicant would require a minor variance to permit the increase in maximum permissible size of 17.6 meters squared for a total floor area for accessory buildings of 42.9 meters squared. In circulation of the application, staff did receive 2 questions of clarification from surrounding neighboring properties who were generally satisfied with the staff answers that were provided. Additionally, staff did not receive any negative comments from internal departments or external agencies. Based on the analysis provided in the planning report, staff is of the opinion that the applicant's proposal does meet the 4 test of a minor variance as stipulated in the Planning Act, as it is minor in nature, is appropriate and desirable, and meets the general intent of both the official plan and zoning bylaw. Planning staff are also of the opinion that there is no anticipated negative impact to adjacent properties or the right of way. Given the above, staff recommend that minor variance application A16/2020 be approved. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions.
Terrific. All right, that means, Mr. Clerk, have there been any other comments received from agencies or the public?
I can confirm at this time we've received one additional comment from members of the public just prior to our meeting. It is from the neighboring property owners, and they are supportive, noting that they have no objectives to the proposal.
Terrific. And I see here that I'm guessing Mr. Vanstone is here to add something.
Through the chair, Mr. Vanstone is no longer on the line of this meeting, so we can proceed with the motion.
Okie dokie. All right. Right. Okay. There was a comment from the public. All good there. Does anybody on the committee have any questions? Deputy Mayor Brennan.
Yeah, I guess I asked this question before, and I continue to struggle with it. When we get a minor variance that is almost twice the size of what's being allowed under the bylaw, the zoning bylaw, we go from 272 to 462. I struggle that this is a minor variance, and I understand under the Planning Act what constitutes that, but I'm just wondering, how far do we go on these things, Dan? Do we allow, if someone came with 600 square feet, would we still consider that a minor variance because it met all the other planning things? But I struggle with the size of these things, that's all.
So through the chair, Deputy Mayor, that is a good question. What is minor is not necessarily, based on the exact percentage of a variance that they're requesting. It's kind of the accumulative impact of the potential variances when one thing is sought. So when we say that it's, in this situation, the individual only requires one minor variance to achieve their desired outcome. However, if you're in a situation where they need a minor variance for the total size, side yard setbacks, heights, total lot coverage, and on, that's when you'd start saying, well, hold on a second, this really isn't meeting the intent of the bylaw whatsoever in the size of what they're proposing. So in this particular case, we are satisfied that, it does seem on paper that it is fairly substantial in terms of a size of an increase. But I would point out that in this particular case, there's a very large portion of the front of this lot that actually is owned as part of a separate ownership. So when you look in the neighborhood, a lot of the lands would actually permit an accessory building of this size. Even neighboring properties on both sides would. In this particular case, on this particular lot, there's a large chunk of land that actually isn't owned by this property owner in front of the house, which kind of puts them at a disadvantage when you're looking at a situation of accessory buildings in relationship to the general character of the neighborhood. So I would say that in generally when you're looking at the neighborhood, since an accessory building of this size could be permitted on the neighboring property, given the lot fabric, in this case they are at a bit of a disadvantage, and that's why I would say it is certainly considered appropriate in terms of planning staff's opinion.
Thank you.
Sorry, thanks, Dan. I don't see any other questions from the committee. So if that's the case, do we have someone who would like to make the motion to approve the minor variance? Councillor Arts, and seconded by Councillor Scott. All those in favor? One opposed. Okay, terrific. I guess they're not on the line, but Mr. Vanstone, if you're listening, you're moving on to the next step. All right, I'd like a motion to rise out of Committee of Adjustment. That motion being that Committee of Adjustment reconvene as council to move into planning public meetings pursuant to the Planning Act, RSO 1990, as amended, to consider the planning applications before us. Can I get a mover, please?
Thank
Councillor Scott and Councillor Shipley. All those in favor? Passed.
Thank you, Councillor. The first item before us is the application for zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 2320 for 6237 Carriage Road, filed by Paul and Mary Wolfs on behalf of Wolfs family. So we'll just make sure they can come on. And in the meantime, I just want to note that the process is virtually the same. We're going to hear from the planner who will read the documents, and then the purpose and effect, and explain the application, present the report. And then I'm going to ask the applicant or their agent to come forward, after which we'll ask any members of the public to comment on any part of the application. And then it'll be council's turn to ask questions. So do we have, the planner is Marion. She's there. Marion, would you like to present the report and speak to the purpose and effect?
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've just shared my screen, so hopefully everyone can see the location map for this property. The purpose of this application is to rezone the land in order to fulfill a condition of consent for the land at 6237 Carriage Road, located on the east side of Carriage Road and south of Littlewood Drive. This application is related to consent file B2919, which severed a surplus farm dwelling and created 2 lots, a retained farm parcel approximately, one second. Okay, so retained farm parcel approximately 98 acres in area, and a surplus residence that is approximately 1.69 acres. As a result of the surplus farm dwelling severance, provincial and local policies seek that agricultural lands are protected for agricultural purposes. Therefore, the retained farmland is proposed to be rezoned from agricultural, or A1, to agricultural no residences, or A3, which prohibits new residences from being constructed and recognizes the undersized farm size and the lot frontage. Additionally, the severed land with the dwelling is proposed to be rezoned to surplus residence, or SR. Upon review of this the severance and the zoning applications, the severed lot did not meet the minimum frontage requirements due to the location of the house and the septic system and the driveway. And as you can see in the location map, the proposed severed lot looks like a lollipop shape, where you have a longer driveway and the house is located further back onto the property. In order to rectify this, a widened lot frontage would meet the zoning requirements. However, this would conflict with the policies of the official plan and the PPS, which seeks to protect agricultural land for the long-term use. Therefore, planning staff recommend that a site-specific surplus residence zone can be created for this property in order to reflect the proposed minimum lot frontage in order to maintain the intent of these policies. This application was also circulated to municipal staff and to the Conservation Authority, and they didn't have any concerns with the proposed rezoning. The notice was also provided in accordance with the Planning Act, and we did receive one inquiry about the application from a neighbor. However, they didn't have any concerns with this requested rezoning. The conditionally granted lots meet the standards of the zones as amended and is consistent with all applicable policies. As such, planning staff recommend that the application is approved, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the report. I will ask, I'm sorry, the applicants are not available, so we won't be hearing from them, and there are no public participants that have registered for this meeting. So I will turn to council and ask if there are any questions. I don't see any. In that case, we have a motion before us. Motion is that zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA 2320 as amended, filed by Paul and Mary Wolfs on behalf of Wolfs Family Farms Incorporated for the severed and retained lands of consent application B 2919 in order to implement the severance of a surplus farm residence be approved. Do we have a mover? Councillor Scott, and a seconder, Councillor Heffernan. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that motion is carried then. Thank you. Marion is going to be our reporting on the next item too. We have report for PLA 5720, and that is for 13 Mile Road. And it's on behalf of Mr. Kubler. And we have Yulia Rodionova on as acting as agent. So we'll start with you, Marion, if you'd like to present the report, please.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. So again, the purpose of this application is to fulfill a condition of consent for the land at 13419 13 Mile Road, which is located on the southeast corner of 13 Mile Road and Hyde Park Road. This application is related to a recent consent file, B2120, which severed a surplus farm dwelling severance and created 2 lots. The retained farm parcel is approximately 100 acres in area, and the surplus residence is approximately 1.8 acres in area. So as a result of this surplus farm dwelling severance, we need to comply and adhere to provincial and local policies in order to protect agricultural lands. Therefore, the requested zoning is from agricultural to agricultural no residences for the remnant farm parcel, and this would prohibit any new residences from being constructed. Additionally, the severed land with the dwelling is proposed to be rezoned to surplus residence. This application was circulated internally to municipal staff and the Conservation Authority, and they have no concerns with the proposed rezoning. Notice was also provided in accordance with the Planning Act to neighboring residences, and we did not receive any concerns from the public. The conditionally granted lots do meet the standards of the requested zones and is consistent with all applicable policies. As such, planning staff recommend that the application is approved. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. My understanding is the owner is not here, but the agent, Ms. Rodionova, is here to speak to the application.
Good afternoon, Council. I have actually no questions, and I think, Miriam, thank you very much. You did a very good job presenting. So it is an extra house, so we just process the severance application, and we hope that the rezoning will be approved. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Then are there no members of the public have registered, so I'm looking to council for questions now. Councillor, sorry.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Marion. I drove by the property yesterday. On the agricultural land, the barn has been torn down, but there's a mountain of rubble. So under the conditions, is there a time limit to clean that up? Or I was just curious as to, is that supposed to be done before the bylaw goes through, or just a question? Thank you.
Sorry, through you, Madam Mayor, I think Dan just logged on. I don't know if Dan wanted to answer that question, but the pile of the remnant barn that was removed has no bearing on the effect of this rezoning. However, it would need to be fulfilled prior to the 1 year period when the conditions of consent lapse.
The chair, yeah, just to reiterate what Marion had stated. So as a condition of the original consent file, the barn was, or barn or accessory building was required to be removed and demolished from the lands by way of a building permit. So they will have to clean up both the barn and any other items that are out on the property prior to signing off on the certificate of consent from the municipal perspective.
Thank you.
Are there other questions? Okay, seeing none, then the motion before us is that the zoning bylaw amendment for applications ZBA 2520 is amended, filed by Yulia Rodionova on behalf of the Kublers for the severed and retained lands of consent application B21/20 in order to implement the severance of the surplus farm residence be approved. Do we have a mover and seconder? Councillor Heffernan and Councillor Scott. All in favor? And that is carried. Opposed? No, that's okay, good. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item 10.3. I will ask that Marion present the report again, please.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. So again, the purpose of this application as well is to rezone the lands in order to fulfill a condition of consent for the land at 25410 Poplar Hill Road, which is located on the east side of Poplar Hill Road and south of McEwen Drive. The application is related to consent file B1319, in which the conditional approval was extended by council in September of this year. The consent severed a surplus farm dwelling and created 2 lots, a retained farm parcel, which is approximately 49 acres in area, and a surplus residence that's approximately 0.82 acres in area. The requested rezoning is to have the remnant farm parcel rezoned to agricultural no residences, which prohibits any new residences from being constructed. Additionally, the severed land with the dwelling is proposed to be rezoned to surplus residence. The application was circulated internally to staff and to the Conservation Authority, and they have no concerns with the proposed. Notice was also provided in accordance with the Planning Act. We did receive 2 inquiries about the application. However, they did not express any opposition to the application itself. The conditionally granted lots meet the standards of the requested zones and is consistent with the applicable policies of the PPS and the official plans. As such, planning staff recommend that the application is approved. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the report. I'm going to ask that the agent for the applicant, Ashley Podlinski, is the next presenter. Do you have a presentation or comments?
No, Marion covered everything. Thank you, Marion. So I have no additional comments.
Okay, thank you kindly. And I don't have any members of the public registered, so I'll ask council, are there any questions or concerns? Seeing none, then the motion before us is that the zoning bylaw amendment application for ZBA 26-2020 as amended, filed by Jonathan Barrett on behalf of Michael Dale and Susan Dale for the severed retained lands of consent application B13/19 in order to implement the severance of a surplus farm residence be approved. A mover, Councillor Shipley, and a seconder, Councillor Arts. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Thanks, Marion. Next, I'll ask Dan, if you would like to present the report for item 10, report for item 10.4, please. That is for 12 Mile Road.
Through the chair, yes, thank you all members of council. I'm just going to share my screen here so everyone can see the lands that we're referring to. And I just want to start off by just issuing my apologies to council. With this particular file, I was going back and forth quite a bit with the applicant and had written the report and submitted it for council review, at which time the applicant had further conversations with staff, and which resulted in the revised report, which is now posted on the website. So sorry if it created a bit of confusion, but it is on the website now for everyone's review. So with that said, the purpose and effect of consent application B23/2020 is to sever a surplus farm residence from an existing farm. The retained lands are proposed by the applicant to have a frontage of approximately 77 meters or 252.6 feet on 12 Mile Road in an area of approximately 1.56 acres. The severed farmland would have a frontage of approximately 537.7 meters on 12 Mile Road in an area of approximately 100.7 acres or 40.7 hectares. As noted in the report, this application represents a reverse surplus farmhouse dwelling severance, where the residential land would be retained and the farmlands would be sold to a qualified farmer as part of a farm consolidation, deeming the house surplus to their needs. The subject property as a whole is a 41.33 hectare farm parcel, which is located on the north side of 12 Mile Road, west of the intersection at Richmond Street and 12 Mile Road. The subject property currently contains a single detached dwelling, an accessory building, a large agricultural storage shed, and agricultural lands which are in crop production. The retained residential lands are serviced by private services in the form of a septic system and a well, and the property is surrounded by agricultural lands which are in crop production. The lands are designated agricultural according to the Middlesex, municipality's official plan, and zoned agricultural A1 zone according to the comprehensive zoning bylaw. In circulation of the application, planning received no comments from the public. The comments received from internal departments and agencies have been included in the planning report and added as conditions of the consent decision where required. Generally, provincial policy, the county official plan, as well as the local official plan, permit surplus farmhouse dwelling severances as long as the municipality is satisfied that a farm consolidation is occurring. The lands contain either municipal or private services. The dwelling is habitable and constructed prior to 1999. No new residence is permitted to be established on the lands or the remnant lands, and access to the farmlands is maintained separately. As identified in the report, planning staff are satisfied that the criteria of the proposed severance of a surplus farm residence on the lands have been met or can be met appropriately and addressed through conditions of the consent. Staff note that it is the desire of the applicant to maintain a portion of the agricultural building on the proposed severed lands, residential lands, to house an existing tractor collection, which is resulting in the lot size requested. The proposed conditions have been included in the consent file whereby the applicant is required to reduce the size of the accessory building, which complies with the existing zoning bylaw standards, as well as to remove the remainder of the building from the proposed severed lands. Based on the above, staff recommend that consent file B23/2020 be approved subject to the conditions that are outlined in the planning report. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Dan. I'll ask, is Paul Willer is the agent for the applicant. Would you like to speak to the application?
Well, if you can hear me, I'd just like to thank you for considering the application that we've put forward, and I'm just making myself available to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. We don't have any public participants registered. I'll ask, do members of council have questions that they'd like answered? Deputy Mayor Brennan.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Dan. How much of the shed is going to be left on the, I know it's going to be reduced, but roughly how much? And if there's going to be some left on the farmland, how far back from the lot line will it have to be torn down?
Through the chair to the deputy mayor. So with respect to the proposal, in discussions with the applicant, they are intending to remove the entire portion that would be on the severed farmlands, so that portion of the building would not be retained at all. With respect to the size of the building to be captured on the severed residential lands, retained residential lands, it would be to the maximum size permitted in the zoning bylaw, which I believe is approximately just over 1,700 square feet. In this case, it basically represents half of the existing agricultural building for storage purposes.
Okay, and lastly, just a quick comment. I think we've seen this before, but it's usually a farm consolidation, and then that farmer deems the house surplus rather than the person that owns the whole property severing off the house and selling the rest of the farm to a neighboring farmer. I thought the intent of the bylaw was for farmers, if they're buying another farm, that they could deem the house surplus and not the original owner doing it. But that's just a comment. Thank you.
Yeah, through the chair, maybe I can just address that quickly to the deputy mayor. So that is correct. The intent of the policy is through a farm consolidation that the lands be considered, or the home be considered surplus through that consolidation process. In this particular case, what staff do is we specifically condition the consent application that the lands have to be transferred to the qualified, to the pre-qualified purchaser of the lands through a purchase and sale agreement, thereby satisfying that condition for staff, or I guess the policy for staff. Because what it is at the end of the day is it's a paper transaction. So there could be a requirement that the purchaser of the land sever off the home and then sell it back to the existing individual that lives there, or we do it this way. So it just reduces that one step in the process for them at the end of the day.
Does anyone else have questions? Okay, Dan, I have one question with respect to the shed. I just wanted to go back to that. I can guess that what roughly half the building is, but I'm wondering what's the setback then from, or this side yard setback then? Is there a minimum distance that that building would have to stop before the edge of the property line?
Through the chair, yeah, no, that is also correct. So in terms of setbacks, it's the minimum setback requirement for the existing zone, which in this case is 3 meters. So the requested lot size is based on retaining essentially half of the building plus an additional 10 feet to allow for the proper setback of that structure.
Okay, I think I've got it. So if I were standing on the property line and I measured off 3 meters, I would run into the wall of the building. Is that what you're saying?
Through the chair, yes. So for the proposed property line, it would be 3 meters outside of where they're proposing to cut the building off.
Oh, so the building is the driving force.
Correct.
So the building is going to be half. So how do we know that where was it 0.63 hectares? Is that going to change depending on how big the building is?
Through the chair, so we've gone ahead with the applicant and done some pretty substantial number crunching as to where that line would potentially exist. So our recommendation is based on an approximate size of the 0.63 hectares, which they said they believe they will not exceed. If they were to exceed that, then it would be up to staff discretion as to whether or not we would want to come back to council for further discussion for the consent item. So based on their current plan right now, they would not need anything beyond what they're showing as the total. I think it's 77 meters of frontage and then 0.63 hectares of area.
Okay, I was good with points. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. I thought someone was trying to speak. Yeah, I'm good with 0.63 hectares. I didn't realize maybe that we were adamant about half the building, but okay, we may see you back, that I gather is the bottom line, depending on how the measurements fall out and what in fact transpires. So thank you. I think I'm clear on where you're going with this. I would entertain then, I'll ask for the motion then. Let me just get it up here. The application here, the motion, sorry, is that the consent application B2320 filed by Paul Willer on behalf of Margaret Courceau in order to sever farmland from the surplus farm residence on a lot of 537.7 meters on 12 Mile Road and an area of approximately 100.7 acres, and retained to have a frontage of approximately 77 meters on 12 Mile Road in the area approximately 1.56 acre from a lot legally described as Part Lot 18, Concession 12, the Township of Middlesex Center be granted. The consent is subject to 18 conditions, and it is granted based on the fact that it is consistent with the provincial policy statement, the County of Middlesex official plan, Middlesex official plan, and subject to the conditions, the proposal would comply with the Middlesex Center comprehensive zoning bylaw. Do you have a mover? And Councillor Scott, and a seconder. Councillor Shipley, all in favor? And that is carried. Okay. Thank you very much for all the presentation there. So that was a longer one. Item 10.5 is the application for zoning bylaw amendment for 10 Mile Road filed by Nancy and Jeff Shipley. And that is also Dan, please.
Through the chair, yes. So this particular application is a consent and concurrent zoning bylaw amendment application. So it's the purpose and effect of the consent portion of the application is to sever a surplus farm residence on both, on a lot with a frontage of approximately 56 meters on 10 Mile Road in an area of approximately 1.34 acres. And just for everyone's sake, I'll share my screen there. The severed farmland would have a frontage of approximately 94.2 meters on 10 Mile Road in an area of approximately 22.9 acres or 9.28 hectares. As noted in the report, the application represents a reverse surplus farmhouse dwelling severance where the residential land would be retained and the farmlands would be sold to a qualified farmer as part of a farm consolidation, deeming the house surplus to their needs. So with that said, the applicant has also submitted a zoning bylaw amendment application concurrently, where the purpose and effect of the zoning bylaw amendment would be to rezone the severed lands from an agricultural A1 zone to the surplus residential SR zone to recognize the residential nature of the property. As well, the retained lands are proposed to be rezoned to an agricultural from an agricultural A1 zone, my apologies, to an agricultural no residence A3 zone to remove the future ability to construct an additional residence on the lands. The subject property as a whole is 9.82 hectares farm parcel, which is located on the south side of 10 Mile Road, east of the intersection at Vanek Road and 10 Mile Road. The subject property currently contains a single detached dwelling and accessory building, a swimming pool, and agricultural lands which are in crop production. The retained residential lands are serviced by private services in the form of septic and well. As well, the property is surrounded by agricultural lands and crop production. The lands are designated agricultural according to the municipality's official plan and zoned agricultural A1 according to the comprehensive zoning bylaw. In circulation of the application, planning did receive one comment from the public pertaining to the abutting agricultural lands. The individual wanted to ensure that the survey boundaries abutting the property are consistent with the surveyed plan. Planning staff noted to them that the survey boundary on the lands would not impact their property, in that it would only be subject to a legal survey based on the existing property pins and the legal descriptions of the lands. No additional comments or concerns were raised from internal departments or external agencies. Generally, provincial policy, the county official plan, as well as the local official plan, do permit surplus farmhouse dwelling severances as long as the municipality is generally satisfied that a farm consolidation is occurring, that the lands contain either municipal or private services, the dwelling is habitable and constructed prior to 1999, and no new residential is permitted to be established, as well access to the lands is maintained. As identified in the planning report, staff are satisfied that the criteria of the proposed severance of a surplus farm residence on the lands have been met or can be met and addressed through conditions of consent. So based on the above, staff recommend that consent file B24-2020 be approved subject to the conditions outlined in the planning report. And additionally, staff also recommend that the proposed zoning bylaw amendment ZBA 27-2020 be approved, that the implementing bylaw be forwarded to council once an approved deposit reference plan has been provided. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions.
Okay, thanks for that report, Dan. Next up, I'd like to ask if Mr. Shipley would like to speak to this application.
No, I've got nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. There are no public members planning to speak tonight. No one is attending, but originally the couple that was going to attend has submitted comments. So we have Albert and Tanya Sholey have provided a document. Other than that, there is no other correspondence. Does council have questions for the planner or the applicant? Councillor Heffernan?
Yes, through the mayor to Dan. The remnant farm of 22 acres, is it going to be merged with the purchaser? I'm assuming that the lofts on the next abutting property.
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. The lofts do own the abutting lands to the east, I guess it would be. In this case, they could merge them on title, or they could technically keep them separate.
I'm just concerned with a farm property of 22 acres. I'd rather see it merged myself, because then it becomes one farm, but 22 acres isn't big enough for a farm. My comment.
Is there any additional question, or that's just a comment? That's it. Okay. Does anyone else have anything? I do have a question about the same kind, on the same thread. I was assuming the properties would merge. In the event they did, and the minimum, if there was a subsequent severance asked of that merged property, how do we know that the symbol, the holding symbol for no more houses on this property is maintained?
So through the chair, to Mayor DeVete, the portion of lands that would be, in this case, severed, which would be the agricultural lands, are subject to a rezoning application. So that 22 and change acres would be rezoned to the agricultural A3 zone, which, regardless of property boundaries, if there was a situation where it did merge with the neighboring properties, the zoning bylaw recognizes zoning lines as lot lines. So with that said, the rezoning of this lands to A3 would be permanent and would not allow an additional residence on this portion of lands. If the neighboring lands didn't have a home and were zoned A1, they could certainly establish a residence on that land. In this situation, there is already a residence on the neighboring lands, so they would not be able to establish an additional residence.
Okay, thank you. Is there a question? I was just asking because I know that we did have a 200-acre parcel, basically, that was split back into the original 200s at one point. And the house that was on the one was demolished and built, and that's all okay, but I was just not clear that there was a home on the other. So thank you for clarifying that. And if there are no other questions, then I'll call the vote that the consent application that's been filed by Nancy and Jeff Shipley on the properties as described in the application and subject to the 12 conditions, and for being consistent with the statements as described. Do I have a mover for that? Deputy Mayor Brennan and Councillor Scott, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on now to item number 6. Tim Williams is going to give us the presentation, the staff report. Here we are.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. Just moving my screen. The purpose and effect of this item is for a public meeting for rezoning application. And that rezoning application is requesting amendments to the zoning bylaw to introduce a drive-through facility, increase driveway width access, allow for adjustments to the percentage of lot frontage on Glendon Avenue, which currently is 65%. They're looking to allow for an increase in that. They're also looking to reduce the parking rate for the property as a whole. And there is a information staff report on file for this as well. So just to sort of speak to the location, this property, and what I want to do at this point is share my screen, provide location map, and I think that can be seen now. The location of the property is within the Kilworth settlement area, and it's located at the south east corner of Crestview and Glendon Drive, which is a County Road 14. it also has frontage on Doan Drive, which is along the southern property line. The lands are legally described as block 231, and it doesn't technically have an address at this point. It is part of a registered subdivision that was registered back in 2019. The area the property itself has it's approximately 1.68 hectares in size, or almost just over 4 acres in area, and the property is currently vacant. On the north side of Glendon, there are a variety of uses, including agricultural, residential. There's a place of worship as well. Residential uses exist and are under construction on the south side of Doan Drive, so south of the property, and those townhouses are in a number of blocks, which can be seen in the small. Well, the townhouses aren't seen in the drawing as the aerial photo was taken much earlier, and those townhouses are just, as I said, just under construction now. To the east of the site is a residential block, which council will remember as coming up recently in their earlier agendas in September. So this is on its way to be draft approved for condominium, and it has received a decision from council. So to the west of the property is another commercial block, and it basically the 2 commercial blocks are flanking Crestview as the main entrance into this subdivision. So in terms of background, as I said, it was registered in April of 2019. The application at that time was also had a rezoning application that went forward. This was approved at the board, I believe in 2016, possibly received a decision in 2017. The proposal before council is for a rezoning. And what I've put up now is a concept plan. This is, as I say, a concept plan. There is no site plan application that is before the council. So what this is just a concept of what the applicant and owner believe may occur, and to give an idea of how the drive-throughs, which they are proposing in the internal sections of the property would occur, how they would lay out the parking spaces, and how they would show that wider driveway access point onto Doan Drive. They're also showing a Crestview access point, and also expressing how the increased building frontage along Glendon would look. So that relates back to all of the items that are being requested in the zoning amendment. So with that being said, I can say that this, given its preliminary nature of the plaza, there aren't specific uses proposed for each individual building. However, the applicants have expressed that they would be willing to reduce the number of restaurants to a maximum of 40% on the property, and that the drive-throughs are not necessarily restricted to these particular buildings, but this is the layout that they're proposing. So in terms of designations on the property, the subject lands are within the Kamoka-Kilworth settlement area, and they are designated village center in the official plan, and they represent the easterly extent of that village center or traditional downtown designation. The property is zoned village commercial, which is a C1-15 with an H7 hold on the property. And that hold provision relates to urban design guidelines being met and the site plan being submitted. The 15 talks about the site-specific nature of the rezoning, which was approved by the Ontario Municipal Board back in 2017. So in terms of the policy framework, I won't go through that. The planning report has several pages on it, but I will highlight a few summary points that I think are important. The village center designation is essentially the downtown designation for the village or hamlet area or settlement area, in this case, in the official plan. And the policy looks to foster development that's in line with the traditional downtown character. And I say foster rather than protect in this case, because this section of the village center, it has much of its area vacant at this point. And this gives council an opportunity to work from the wellness center and the Foodland Plaza and build on those successes with additional downtown type building form. And this parcel that is before you tonight is the next development parcel to come forward, and it is the bookend to that village center. The policy direction speaks to a character of a downtown or village center, and that it's a destination for shopping, visiting, for attending offices, and it's a gathering place for the community. So yes, you may drive to this location, but the intent is that you would park there and that there would be a component of each trip that would be pedestrian in nature. Chance encounters and gathering places are encouraged as part of this designation and the policy framework surrounding it. The issue then becomes the drive-through is just a singular mission and a missed opportunity for that type of interaction. So I speak to sort of comments that were received in the consultation, and so I'm leading you to that now. And I will say that planning staff have asked the applicant to provide some additional information on that front to show how that the policies are being met in more detail. And so we have asked, and they are going back on that front and looking at that, but also wanted to get tonight's input before providing any response on that, which is generally the approach that is taken. With that being said, we are looking for that information as well as sort of understanding, and these comments are all, again, in the report, so I will only glaze over them to say that there was one other item that wasn't noted in, and that is that there is some clarity being sought for which lot line would be the front lot line and which one would be a side lot line. And so we will work with the applicant on that front to work on that clarification. So that isn't noted in the report, but it is something that we are and can work with the applicant to address on a go forward basis. But we are looking for that additional information. We're looking for some information on the proxy sites that they've provided and or examples that they've given on the parking rates, due to the fact that there are a number of parking spaces proposed on the property, but also it does lead us to know that if there was 40% of this parcel being used for restaurant uses and the remaining 60% was, say, all retail, that you'd be looking at a number that's just close to 300 parking spaces required if you were to use the current zoning standard. So their proposal would put it at approximately 209. So it's about a third of the parking spaces reduced. And so when it comes to that sort of level of reduction, we do want to take a strong and hard look at what the impacts would be on the adjacent properties, on the operations within the site itself, etc. And as I say, this is not a site plan application at this point, but the site plan would need some work in order to make it come to fruition. So there were other comments from Public Works and Engineering about those kinds of site plan matters, such as a noise report or study to ensure that the noise coming from drive-through menu spots is not too loud for those residents that will be either to the east in the condominium or to the south along Doan Drive. The county engineer has also raised no specific concern regarding the rezoning, but did have a number of issues surrounding how the site plan will work, and that may impact some of the viability of the proposal, but that will also need to be worked out during site plan. So these are essentially the main agency comments. And during the, in order to have the statutory public meeting, notice was provided to those property owners within 120 meters, and two residents raised concerns, one in an email to the clerk, and another, I had a telephone conversation with them this afternoon. So I can summarize their comments to be that they have a concern with the enlargement of the driveway access onto Doan Drive and the impact that will have to the character of Doan Drive, the parking spaces that are located on Doan Drive, and also the amount of traffic that would be directed to what would seem to be the larger of the two access points, i.e. If it's the easiest and seems to be the biggest access point, more people will use it, and they're concerned about that given the fact that there is a residential character to that street versus Crestview frontage, which is obviously commercial with the adjacent commercial to the west. So their concern was on that front, and then the other front was relating to the spillover nature of parking from this development onto the Doan Drive parking spaces that are located there. Just a bit of history on that front. The parking on Doan Drive was created and designed with the understanding that parking will be or is a little bit different on Doan Drive given the narrow lot fabric on the townhouses. So these are, again, just a parcel fabric, so it's very narrow. But what happens here is that when you have the two driveways, there isn't enough space to have parked cars on the south side of Doan Drive. So what was done is a number of parking spaces were created and designed with space for those parking spaces to exist within the municipal right-of-way. And they were assigned. When I say assigned, I don't mean like with easements or whatnot, but they were attributed to the townhouse developments, and a parking plan was created during the subdivision process to address that concern that there would not be enough parking for those townhouses based on the narrow frontages. So with those pieces in mind, I will note that the email that came through did address another item that was more technical, less related to the planning application and more relating to the planning process and the Planning Act requirements, and that related to notice. So these properties, as noted earlier, are under construction or in the process of being closed or just newly
occupied by the owners. And so what the concern was raised is that those homeowners that will be closing, let's say on December 1st, weren't notified of this meeting, or those that closed on November 1st may not have been notified, or likely were not notified because our notices went out prior to that, or we were not informed yet of the fact that the property ownership had changed. So I know James, the clerk, spoke or wrote back on this subject, and we have obviously proceeded with the public meeting as we are meeting the Planning Act requirements. But I did want to at least raise this so that you're aware of it, as both that letter and the phone call happened actually after the planning report was filed. So I will say that in terms of next steps, the intent of this subject report was to provide council with some information and the public with some information about the proposed development and the relevant policies. And what would happen after tonight is we would take back any comments and provide a full policy analysis, see what responses to comments would come from the applicant, and then provide a final report in the coming months with providing a recommendation to council. So I will say all of that, and then I will end with an apology to say that at the end of my report, I wrote Strathroy Caradoc. I apologize. I had been doing a number of Strathroy Caradoc reports, and I think my brain may have turned off, and my auto-corrected fingers just wrote in Strathroy Caradoc. So I apologize for that. Middlesex Centre will obviously be making that decision on this file, and I apologize for that. So thank you very much. I'm available for any comments, and I believe that there are presentations by the applicant.
Thank you for that report, Tim, and apology accepted, not to worry. I will ask Mr. John Hendricks. I understand you're the lead presenter, accompanied by Jeremy Tran and Mary Tanner. Are you ready to make your presentation?
Yes, I am, Madam Mayor. Good evening, and thank you for that to you and the members of council. My name is John Hendricks, as noted. I'm a registered professional planner with Niagara Planning Group, and we were retained by Trident to provide guidance on the development of the commercial block located at the southeast corner of Glendon and Crestview. In addition to the request for adding drive-through facilities as a permitted use, we also recommended that Trident consider a blended parking standard similar to the Foodland LCBO site. We don't view this as a reduction at all, but I'll get into that a little bit later. I certainly want to first commend the municipality for the vision that's been established for this area. We certainly support that overarching vision. In fact, when we were at the OMB hearing, and it was OMB back then, we were aligned with the municipality at the time in the end. I know there have been some challenges getting there, but we got there. And that said, in terms of the overarching vision, there's still room for some fine tuning the details, particularly now that we have all experienced some of the challenges associated with COVID. Perhaps we're experiencing them more here in Niagara than you are out in Middlesex, but and we're certainly where Lambton to the west of you is even doing really well. That last we were out there. But most importantly now, we see this development proceeding, and there's a need to respond to the evolving local market. So if we can get the slide presentation up, James, is that possible? And we could go to the second slide, or? Perfect.
Chair, our senior planner, Tim, has been kind enough to bring that up on screen now for folks.
Okay, I will simply, when I'm ready to move to the next, I'll let you know.
I will take care of that then. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. In this presentation, I'll focus on the primary asks in our planning application, but I did want to first briefly address the other 3 points that were raised in Mr. Williams's report. I don't think I need to delve into those in detail, but if there are any questions, I'd be happy to address those later, and I certainly hope Mr. Williams will be called upon as well. All 3 items are technical in nature and intended to ensure that the implementing bylaw achieves positive outcomes for the area that are consistent with the policy intent of the secondary plan. These 3 items include 1, address the building frontage regulation at Glendon Drive. And I want to clarify, the current regulation doesn't state that 65% is intended as a maximum or a minimum. It's just there. So the amendment is intended to provide that clarity. And we felt what the municipality was after at the time was a 65% minimum. And we've added a maximum to that for some clarity. The second point, building setbacks illustrated along Doan were intended to reflect our understanding of the intent of the plan and the zoning bylaw, that the front yard is Crestview and the rear yard setbacks of 6 meters would apply next to the residential block to the east. Now, again, I can address any questions on this later if needed. We've certainly been in discussion with staff about this detail, and Tim's already identified that for you. So certainly we agree this is something that just needs some clarity. In terms of the intent, though, we want to be clear that we were under the understanding that Crestview was our lot frontage. The increased driveway width proposed at Doan is the third point, and that's intended to ensure that the site access has a suitable landscape median to enhance the overall presentation of this commercial block at Doan. Not to make it worse, but to actually landscape it, because an access is certainly going to be needed. And we see staff comments that reinforce the importance of this access, and it warrants a high level of attention at the site plan stage because it's very clearly needed. And again, we understand, concerns being raised by the public in that regard, but the intent is actually to soften that impact. It's going to be needed. And clearly, the commercial activity at the site was planned 3 or 4 years ago when this was first considered. So on to the main request, the reduced parking comment made by Tim. And again, I guess I'll take issue with that in terms of how it's framed, but we really want to emphasize the importance of not over parking the site and thereby creating a commercial center that you as a municipality have very clearly been trying to avoid. I think as well, we want to note that the request that we've made for parking per square foot is actually more parking than what is required on the LCBO Foodland site. So in terms of what they're providing, I believe it's just 4 stalls per 100, and we're proposing 4.5 stalls per 100 for the square meters for the site. In addition, the analysis found in our planning report researched several nearby municipalities that also found 4.5 spaces per 100 was consistent with most of those and certainly appropriate. Now, candidly, we aren't really clear why staff indicate in the report there may be a need for proxy sites, and that may just be a misunderstanding of what Tim's getting at, but we'll have to discuss that with them more. We don't believe that this rate reflects a parking reduction. Rather, it's intended to reflect a reasonable blended rate that addresses all uses likely to locate here. Now, our planning report should be available to council members for their review, and we're happy to take questions on our analysis. Certainly, we can further discuss with staff, but we have no evidence presented to date to lead us to conclude that any adjustment to this request is warranted. Now, perhaps I'll just pause here in my planned remarks and just indicate that the notion of the restaurant space creating a bit of a problem here, I think that's inflating the issue as well and making it sound worse than it was certainly intended. If there's a need to look at that 40% number, that's certainly some dialogue we can still have to provide greater comfort in that regard. But I'll move on for the moment because I've got some related comments that might be helpful. And if I get some questions on this, I can elaborate further. I want to be sensitive to the time as well. In terms of providing one common standard for this site rather than several, for example, if you had one for retail and one for restaurants and then one for offices, it's preferable to provide an overall parking standard for all uses on one site. Standalone sites and buildings can benefit from specific parking rates, but the larger commercial sites like this one need to have a blended standard. It also has some clear administrative benefits and provides greater certainty for how the site is developed. And again, we'd be pleased to discuss this further with staff if needed. But as noted previously, this approach is not unique in your community. It's happening right across the street. Now, I'd be happy to take questions later and share relevant experiences from other communities if that's of assistance to council. Tim, if we can skip through slides 4 and 5 and go to slide 6, we missed the schematic. Maybe, yeah, that's brief. That's in color. We can maybe come back to that if we need to for questions. So we can go to slide 6 now, I think.
Is this the one?
Yep, that's it. That's the one. Perfect. Thanks. Now to the main ask for this evening, the addition of drive-throughs. Now, I want to show you an example from Niagara-on-the-Lake, and I apologize if I'm going too far away, but I know that many folks are familiar with the area and might even be familiar with this development. This is something that we're actually doing some work with the developer of this community. It's known as the Village. It's just on the edge of Niagara-on-the-Lake, right on the edge of some large wineries as well. And the new urbanist principles have been in place since the outset of this community development back about 20 years. John Hawley, again, is a client and a friend, actually. He's incredibly committed to implementing a sustainable community, very much aligned with the vision that Middlesex Center has for this area. We're now working with him on the final piece, the commercial block that's adjacent to this CIBC building. And if you look carefully, you're going to see on the right of the image a drive-through for the bank. If we can move to the next slide. Thanks, Tim. It's important that we see something on the ground to know it can work without sacrificing the overall objective that you've established for your community. Drive-throughs in and of themselves are not the problem, but how they are designed does matter. Similar to the concept we provided you for the Trident block, you can see how the Village is also pulling the parking areas in behind the buildings so that the buildings become the focus from the street. You can also see where the CIBC Bank and the drive-through is located in relation to some of the other development that's planned. Not all of those buildings are up yet. They are, again, and the concept is changing from what you see, but this is publicly available. So that's what we chose to put on the slide. But you get the point. The parking is in behind the buildings. Obviously, we prefer to see less parking, more bikes, and we want to see people walking to this site from the nearby community. Now, whether or not you agree, there has to be space provided for vehicles. And it's best if it can, for the most part, be located behind those buildings and not out front facing any of the streets. On that, I think we're all agreed. With that in mind, it's our professional view that drive-throughs are not only necessary, but can be provided in a manner that in no way detracts from the overall effect that your community wants to see implemented. And it offers convenience to residents as well. Again, we completely support what you're trying to accomplish here. We really do. We simply ask that you consider the examples we've illustrated and direct staff to prepare an implementing bylaw to allow these, even if the maximum number of drive-throughs is included as a regulation. Now, some reasons we believe drive-throughs can be supported include the following. They're proposed behind the attractive, compact, pedestrian-oriented built form required along Glendon, Crestview, and Dome. Second point, we've discovered since the advent of COVID that restaurants can't rely solely on dine-in facilities, and it's extremely unlikely that any restaurant will even consider locating here without a drive-through pickup option with patio dining. And patio dining will only get you so far into the colder months. Restaurants are risky at the best of times, now even more so. I'll just add, we have a client in Niagara-on-the-Lake who did an amazing patio, actually in Virgil. It's walking distance from my place. And they had just literally been up and running when things had to close down. The patio is, I don't know if it saved them, but the fact that they had an amazing patio and they were able to use that has certainly made a difference in their ability to operate through the summer. Obviously, things are different now. The third point, all driveways and stacking lanes are located behind the buildings. They'll be screened from view at Glendon by those buildings and with landscaping wherever there are pedestrian gaps between the buildings. Fourth point, drive-throughs will not impact the appearance of the buildings from the street side. 5, any concerns raised by staff regarding design must be addressed at the site plan stage, and council still has one more layer of approvals control through the H symbol. Please note, we are not proposing removal of the H with this application. 6th point, our approach to the design of this block is intended to de-emphasize the parking areas which include the drive-through lanes. No relief is being sought for queuing lengths. These were taken into account with our schematic, and that's what I would call this plan in front of you, a schematic. And if that changes, it will be the result of a detailed site plan review, which again will be brought to council before the H can be removed. Tim, we have some other images. Perhaps if we just slide down to number 11, and I'll close out. Yep, that's it. So with that, and to give you a sense of how this will appear, I conclude my presentation, and I'd be more than pleased to take any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. I'm going to ask, there are no members of the public who, oh, wait a minute. Oh, Yep, I'm right. There are no members of the public who registered to speak to this. So I'll ask about questions from council and points of clarification, comments, observations. Oh, Derek has his hand up, so please go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. Mr. Henricks, Mr. De Jong's been reaching out to me about this this file as well, and that was fine. I didn't have a problem with that. The issue of the drive-throughs, you're right. A number of this council went to Niagara-on-the-Lake a little over a year ago and saw the new urbanist forum being built there. It's quite nice. My concern with using the CIBC as an example of a drive-through done well, I guess, is that it comes off of the road that goes in front of the other buildings and then exits onto Garrison Village Drive. It's not really within the site. I would argue that, and maybe you're not familiar with it, but I would imagine Mr. De Jong is, and others at Tridon, that the relatively new Tim Hortons and McDonald's at Commissioners Road, or I guess Oxford Street rather, and not West Elborn, I don't know, on the very across the street from West 5 on the west end of London.
The Sifton site.
Correct.
Sifton.
Is probably is a lot closer to what you're trying to achieve, or rather what you're proposing here. And frankly, as somebody who's been through that site many times, I find it a nightmare. I don't find it effective. It's effective at keeping the drive-through within the property, sure, but as far as somebody who's going in and out of the drive-through, I find the layout actually incredibly confusing, very complicated, and I think it's a ticking time bomb for collisions to happen on that site. I don't find this particular layout much better from a conceptual point of view. I think this is potentially fraught with issues as presented today. Secondly, and back to your point about, and to Tim's point as well about the village commercial or village center zoning rather, or designation, and really trying to make this a placemaking endeavor, because we don't get a lot of opportunities to do this and make sure we're doing it well. Adding a drive-through or two drive-throughs for me is just not a good idea. It's not the type of, I don't find it to be the type of thing people want in Kilworth. The types of businesses, in my experience, that tend to locate in a location with a drive-through are not small local businesses. They are McDonald's, they are Starbucks, they are Taco Bell, which you literally have that last, Taco Bell on your on the very first slide. Yep. As an example, I hear often, we're just turning into London, we're turning into London. This is literally, turning that corner into a corner in London. So overall, I can't say I can support the current draft proposal as is with the drive-throughs. And I think very few of my residents, of my constituents would support it as well.
Thank you. Other Councillor Arks.
Through your mayor, I agree with Councillor Silva about driving in and out of that drive-through. I look at it, and if I'm a driver, I don't know where I'm going, or I think it's a hazard. And as far as your concept, it's a concept. We've been down this road before where we've been promised this great subdivision, and it's an idea and you get excited, you go for it, and then once the chips start to fall in place, they change their mind. If you get these bylaw amendments, can't stop you from changing whatever you want to do. So until I see a plan that I like and I know you're going to use, because right now this is just it's not a specific design. It's just a concept, and a concept can change. And once we agree to your conditions, we've lost the ability to control stuff. Thank you.
Maria turned it off. Other questions or comments? I don't see any. I guess I'll jump in then. I read through the report and I see that you are addressing a number of issues and appreciate that. I'm not sure I can follow the logic for some of those, and it's not clear to me, for example, when you talk about drive-through use and reference creation of employment opportunities or things like service during COVID, which is, well, at least currently a 1 in a 100-year event. I also, when I read that this is a realistic response to short and medium term, personally, I find short-term planning has long-term implications and usually lots of long-term costs, because changing things is a lot harder than doing it right the first time, or at least attempting to do it right the first time. When you do a lot of thought and planning and have a really good plan in place, which I think we do. Dr. Freeman gave us lots of ideas and introduced us to different concepts that, well, for lack of a better comparator, in some ways mimic the sense of community and sense of space that lots of people in North America pay big money to go to Europe to experience. Increasingly, I would agree with Councillor Silva's comments about the buy-in for a vision of something different than London or other large urban centers. I think the mayor in Niagara-on-the-Lake has worked hard to make sure that there have been opportunities to do something really different. And I know Mr. Hawley has explained too how hard it was to get a builder to do something different, the education that has to go on. So for example, the bank is presented as a new urbanism, how did you put it? A new urban, the bank building in your diagram is presented as a new urbanism kind of idea or presentation of some new urbanism. From my reading and understanding of new urbanism, I can't draw the lines between that picture and what it represents and all the concepts that are involved in new urbanism and what it means for community safety, traffic flows, creating senses of spaces and so forth. I've forgotten which document I read it in. There is reference to the drive-throughs to the west. That is a spit away from a 400 series highway, where I can see that people might want to drop in, grab a coffee and get out. I would also expect that commuters that were traveling down Glendon Drive from Glencoe or Mount Bridges or Strathroy to the south end of London, those are the kind of people that want to stop in a drive-through. This has got nothing to do with creating senses of space and enjoying an area in what is the village center. And then for me, the other part of it, of course, is village center. When I think of a village center, I'm thinking about areas where cars really don't want to come necessarily, because it's not easy to get to point A to point B. The point is to shop, to walk, to enjoy, to meet, and all those other kinds of verbs, as opposed to commute or travel quickly from point A to point B. So I think we have a lot of work to do before we get to a point where we can jump up and down and say, wow, we're all excited about it. The idea of putting, and where else did we, right now the picture shows, or the schematic diagram shows 2 drive-throughs. I think I read somewhere in the wording, but not limited to 2. I don't recall the page number, I should have noted it. But I'm going to Councillor Art's point. Yes, so we're thinking and looking at pictures of 2, and then the next thing we know, we've got 3 lining up. So I'll stop there. I don't want to belabor the point. I think it's been said, and I've already gone and talked about stuff that's been said already. So that's all I'm going to say for now. We have no more questions of here from council. So I guess the next.
Madam Mayor.
Oh yes, Go
Sorry,
ahead.
one new item I didn't address earlier. I am sympathetic, Mr. Henricks, to your issues around parking. There is a trend across North American municipalities to remove or reduce parking minimums. Looking at the schematic, that's a lot of parking. And so I'm sympathetic to that. I'll give you that much. I would encourage staff personally to work with you on some sort of standard for the entire property. I think that would be more fairly appropriate. I'll leave it to them. But yeah, that was it, just parking.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, would it be appropriate for me to comment now or not?
Well, I'm not sure that we're looking for a conversation. I think you're looking for comments and input from, and we're not negotiating any kind of detail here. I think at this
not at all, not at all, and that's fine. If you don't want to hear from me, that's fine.
I don't think that I said it quite that way, but if that's the way you
I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it in a negative way at all. I'm sorry. I know this is my first time in front of this council. Okay. I didn't want to, I was just trying to be respectful, and I apologize.
Yeah, I'm just cognizant of time. I treat a public session as an opportunity to give comments and input rather than discuss and negotiate details. Or I'm sure we'll be seeing you in front of us again, and we'll have answers to questions. And I think I'm encouraged that there's good conversation happening between staff and our staff and your group of people and representatives of the builders and developers. So I think the objective of the meeting has been met, is my view. So I think we'll move on to the next item then. So the motion before us is to receive this document, and I would ask for a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Scott and Councillor Deputy Mayor Brennan, all in favor of receiving? And that is carried. Thank you everyone for your time and input. And we'll move now to item 10.7, which is an application for a draft plan subdivision for Timberwalk. And we have Marion presenting from staff. Please, you're up now, Marion.
Hey, thank you, Madam Mayor. So the purpose of this report is to provide a recommendation regarding the draft plan approval of what's known as Phase 5 of the Timberwalk subdivision. The subdivision is located in Ilderton, south of Ilderton Road at the southern end of Timberwalk Trail. So I'll just quickly pull up the plan of subdivision. So you should be able to see it now on your screens. So as you can recall, a public meeting was held in March 2019 and then again in June 2020 regarding the subdivision and the rezoning, and then again in September of 2020 when council approved the rezoning application. Since the most recent public meetings in June and in September, we have not received any further comments from the public or agencies, except for the Conservation Authority, as we have been working with them for draft conditions. So the plan before you today was revised in September 2020, where the applicant added one lot for a single detached dwelling, and that's along Street A, which is the extension of Timberwalk Trail, and it backs onto the wooded area. This results in a total of 54 lots and 2 blocks for low or medium density residential development on approximately 40 acres of land. The proposed plan includes blocks for a public park and as well as open space and conservation of the significant woodland located on the southern edge of the property. In the staff report, I have included the draft conditions that would apply to the development if approved. And they seek to address a number of items such as management and conservation of the woodland and open space areas, stormwater management, construction details, and servicing, especially for lots 27, 28, and 29 off of Songbird Lane. And these were the lots that were addressed by the applicant and by engineering at the previous meeting. Based on this, staff are satisfied that the plan of subdivision and the draft conditions are consistent with the PPS policies and policies of the county and local official plans. As a result, planning staff recommend that council pass a resolution recommending draft plan approval on the subject land, subject to the draft conditions for a period of up to 3 years, and that it be forwarded for consideration by Middlesex County Council. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. We have Maureen Sunti and Phil Mashlin to speak for the developer.
Hi, thank you very much.
So,
okay, can you hear me okay?
Clearly.
Okay, good. Maureen Zanti from Sifton, and I'm not going to speak for any length of time. I just wanted to say thank you to Marion for the report. We are in agreement with the recommendation. As you know, this project has been going on for quite some time, and we did make a number of changes to try and address the comments and the issues that have been raised by the public. And so we're really looking forward to hopefully proceeding and getting approval on the subdivision.
Thank you. And I have no members of the public registered to speak to this. I would entertain questions from council. Comments? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion before us. The motion is that the County of Middlesex be advised that Middlesex Centre recommends draft plan approval for the land legally known as Concession 10, part lot various numbers, and part lot 3, Municipality of Middlesex Centre, County File number 39T MC 1901, subject to the draft plan conditions appended to the Middlesex Centre Report PLA 70/2020 and subject to a 3-year lapse period. Do I have a mover? Councillor Scott and Councillor Heffernan, all in favor of motion? Okay, good. Thank you, everyone. That is carried. And thank you for your time and the short meeting here. We'll move on to the next item, number 10.8. This is an application for draft plan condominium for Longwoods Road. We have Marion up again to present for staff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and hopefully everyone can see the location map on the screen. So the purpose of this report is to provide council with information and to solicit feedback from council and the public as well about the proposed plan of condominium. The address is 10915 and 10929 and 11157 Longwoods Drive in Delaware. It is currently expressed as just one large lot, and that's one parcel. So this site is approximately 16 acres in area and located on the south side of Longwoods Road, east of Martin Drive. The land is actively farmed. However, there was a residence on the land, but that was removed. Residential uses exist immediately to the west of the property and east along Carriage Road. Industrial, commercial, and residential uses exist on the north side of Longwoods Road. And there is farmed land located on the south of the site, and that's located outside of the settlement area. So the purpose of this, purpose and effect of this application would create 15 lots for light industrial uses and 1 lot for a stormwater management pond. And I'll just quickly pull up the plan of condominium that's proposed. And hopefully everyone can see this on their screens now. The lots will vary in size from 0.7 acres to 1.14 acres in area, and the stormwater management pond would be the largest at 1.26 acres. The lots are proposed to be fronting onto a private roadway with the 2 turning circles. So this roadway will also provide a single access to Longwoods Road, which is also the county road. Further, the roadway and the stormwater management system would be common elements of the condominium itself. Each lot is proposed to be serviced by municipal water and contain an individual septic system, and a berm is proposed along the perimeter of the property boundary. So the subject lands are designated settlement employment and within the special policy area number 5, which requires a noise impact assessment to be completed with mitigation measures implemented prior to implementing a zoning bylaw amendment. The lands are also zoned light industrial exception 2 with a hold. And that hold also requires a noise impact analysis and to be completed and any mitigation measures to be incorporated into the site plan before that hold is removed. So notice was provided in accordance with the Planning Act, and we did receive a number of inquiries and questions about the proposal. And we also received a number of requests for additional information. So one landowner would like to know if a noise impact assessment would be conducted on the current or future surrounding residential areas and what measures are proposed to be included. Further, they would like to know what fencing or berms or buffers are required for the site if the proposal was to go ahead. Another landowner provided correspondence, and I believe this was shared with council as well. The landowner is concerned with the method of dealing with stormwater runoff, since this is in a groundwater source protection area, and water wells for domestic supply are relatively shallow. They would also like to know what studies and analysis have been completed to ensure the quality and quantity of the water supply to these existing wells will not be affected by this proposal. And lastly, we also received another piece of correspondence, which I believe was shared with council as well. They did express concerns regarding the private servicing and stormwater management plan for the proposed development. Additionally, they do have concerns with the lack of noise attenuation measures, especially along the southern and eastern property boundaries of the land, especially when considering future land uses that may be located to the south of this property. Again, we did circulate this to agencies and to staff as well. The Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority immediately didn't have any concerns. However, they are currently reviewing the stormwater management plan and the design details and will provide comments. The municipality's Public Works and Engineering Department had a number of comments related to stormwater management and grading, the servicing of the lands, which eventually might affect the lot sizes. And further, staff would like to also review detailed plans for the property, such as landscaping, servicing, lighting, just to name a few. And all these requirements have been identified within the staff report. So again, this application is for information purposes to obtain feedback from the public and from council, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may
have. Thank you for that presentation, Marian. I have the agent, Kyle McIntosh, who'll be speaking to the application on behalf of the owner.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Just as clear as a bell.
Okay, thank you. And thanks, Marianne, for the presentation. My name is Kyle McIntosh. I work for MTE Consulting, and I'm representing the owner, and I just wanted to give a couple quick follow-ups in regards to Marianne's presentation. The first thing I'd like to elaborate is, and Marianne, would you be able to put up the plan that you just had up on the screen, the draft plan?
Yes. You see that now?
Yes, thank you. So the first thing I'd like to point out is that this roadway would be a private roadway. It would be owned and maintained by the condo corporation, which would be comprised of all the owners of the individual lots. So it would be a private roadway, and the municipality would not be responsible for any maintenance on that roadway. It would be privately owned and maintained. Also, same with our proposed stormwater management pond, and I'll talk about that in a bit. That would also be privately owned and maintained. So what we're proposing here is a bunch of smaller lots for light industrial use. And I'd like to elaborate, it's light industrial. It's not general industrial or heavy industrial, it's light industrial. Examples could be, for example, there's been a lot of interest in this already from a landscaper who wants an area to have a shop and maybe to have an office too. It would be specific items like that, or a bricklayer, or any construction trades that want a small piece of land for a shop to store some equipment and to have an office. Warehouse is also something that we would be anticipating, like small warehouse usage. We envision the buildings to be usually one-floor buildings with probably about a 3,000 square foot footprint. So that's a relatively small footprint. We're not proposing any heavy or general industrial. That wouldn't be permitted under the zoning. It's just light industrial that we're proposing here. This would be on what we call partial services. There's municipal water main that would be extended to the site. And as there's no sewer system in Delaware right now, this would be the same as the rest of Delaware. Everything would be on a private individual septic bed. But again, I would like to outline it is just a light industrial that we're proposing. I'd like to quickly talk about the noise for a minute. We have completed a noise report, which is required through both the official plan and the holding provision on the zoning bylaw. And the noise report did not look at lands to the south. And that's simply because the lands to the south are not currently zoned residential. And in fact, they're not even in the settlement area. They are currently zoned agricultural, and they're outside of the settlement area. And as a result, our noise study did not really consider that as a residential land, simply because it's not residential right now. We did look at the existing residential house, which is immediately to the west of the property. And we also looked at existing residential lots on Carriage Street, which is approximately 80 or 100 meters east of the property. And our noise report basically outlined 3 different areas for the site and 3 different ranges of uses, depending on the noise that would be permitted from the Ministry of Environment. As I said, these are all small scale uses. The biggest noise that we'd be anticipating is people that may have trucks that they use in their yards and they have to drive their truck out of their yard, or perhaps air conditioning units on a rooftop or exhaust fans for a building. We're not anticipating any noise from heavy industrial sources because, again, this is light industrial. So we're not anticipating any manufacturing noise, and the noise report does go through that. But we didn't think it was fair that we have to analyze the noise for any potential future development to the south, because currently right now to the south and to the east is agricultural outside of the existing settlement area. The other thing that we've looked at quite in depth is the stormwater management for this area. And again, that's going to be privately owned and maintained by the condo corporation. This area is in what we call a recharge area, and a good portion of Delaware is in a recharge area. And it's simply because the soils are mainly sandy and gravel. And when you're in a recharge area, you are encouraged and also required to recharge or reintroduce and infiltrate some of your stormwater back in the ground. And that's why we came up with the plan for the infiltration pond, because it's a suitable site for doing infiltration and restoring water back to the ground. That is supported and recommended by the Conservation Authority. And obviously the water would be treated before we take it to our storm pond. So our swim report outlines that we would treat our storm water with items such as oil grit separators, bioswales, and other landscape enhancements. We would treat our stormwater before it even reaches our proposed infiltration pond. So the infiltration pond would be infiltrating relatively clean and treated stormwater back into the ground. One of the neighbors, I believe, to the east has raised a potential concern with the stormwater management pond and how it may or may not impact their shallow well. Typically, when you have a well system, any infiltration or a septic bed would have to be a minimum 30 meters away from a well. We are quite a distance more than that away from the existing wells. I imagine we're probably 120 or 130 meters away from any well for any house on Carriage Road, which is quite a bit more than the standard 30-meter requirement. So we don't foresee any issue with any contamination on any wells on any existing lots on Carriage Street. However, if staff did want us to do studies or reports to prove that, we are definitely willing to do that. One of the landowners to the south also had some comments on our plan, which we appreciate. They thought that perhaps instead of doing an infiltration pond, that we could perhaps get a stormwater outlet, possibly through their land, and connect to an existing municipal drain further to the south. We would love to explore that option with the neighbor, and we've reached out to the neighbor through Steve Saker has reached out to the landowner, and we would like to talk to the neighbor in the south to see if that's a viable option. We have no issue with that, but we don't really want to hold up our plan because of that, or if we're not able to make an agreement with the neighbor to the south, simply because we do have a standalone option, which is technically viable and technically works right now. Again, we're just at the draft plan of condo stage. There will be probably municipal comments that require more detailed engineering and design work done as a condition of draft plan approval, and we would completely agree with that. Furthermore, each of the individual 15 parcels would also require a site plan and detailed engineering to come on board when those parcels develop. Right now, it's kind of premature to do engineering for those parcels or site plan layouts because we don't know the exact particulars of who's going to buy those and what they want to put on those parcels. But each individual parcel would also be required to go through probably a scoped or a small site plan approval process and engineering design process for each individual parcel. So it's not that this is it. We still will likely be required to do more detailed information as a condition of our draft plan approval. And then there's more detailed work to be done on each individual site when they do come in for permits. The other thing I'd like to outline is there is municipal water supply on Longwoods Road, but it's approximately 200 meters west of our site. We would have to extend that water main to our site in order to build this because we definitely want to have a municipal water system here. And the developer is willing to do some work on that water main and to probably undertake that water main. But we would like to bring up the fact that there should be some type of cost sharing on that water main extension. Because what will happen is after we extend that water main, there'll be other people both south side and north side of Longworth Road. There's other sites and other infill sites and existing sites which will likely want to connect to the water main. So because that water main is being extended in front of other properties, we are hoping that we could work some type of deal with the municipality to get some cost sharing on that water main extension. Yes, it is required for our development, but I believe other people will use and require that water main also. So that's one thing that we did want to talk about it. Perhaps we could talk about that more down the process, but that is one item that we would like to table. And apart from that, I'm open to answer any comments or questions on this development. And I would like to conclude by saying that our plan does comply both with the official plan from the county and the municipality, and it also complies with the zoning bylaw from the municipality. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that presentation. We have a public participant presenting. We have Jim Banman for Monteith Brown Planning Consultants identified. Are you there as a presenter? Okay, we're almost there.
Okay, there we go.
Voila.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity, Madam Mayor, members of council, and staff to be able to participate in the meeting. I'm Jim Banman from Cirrus Developments. I'm the owner of the property to the south. I also have a couple of members from my consulting team as well, and they can comment as well if I screw something up. So that's Jay McGuffin from Monteith Brown Consulting and Rick Dykstra from Dillon Consulting as well. So first of all, I'd like to say that we're very encouraged to see that there's an interest in development in the community. And we're also very supportive of appropriate growth and development in the Delaware community itself. So I own the 89 acres to the south, directly adjacent to this particular property that's been proposed. And my parcel also has about 300 feet of frontage to the east on Longwoods Road. And it also has access on the Martin Road extension that would extend past Longwoods Road to the south as well. The current use of the lands is agricultural, and the current growth boundary is located between my property and the proposed industrial site on the south and on the east side as well, just to get the bearings. So as council may not be aware, we've submitted a proposal to request that our lands be included in the growth boundary expansion during the current official plan review. And our proposal also to staff included that public infrastructure solutions be provided as well. That could serve this particular site, and it could also serve the greater Delaware community as well. So we're excited about the opportunities of what that could do to enhance the community of Delaware. And while I recognize that my lands are currently not in the growth boundary, they are excellently positioned to accept future growth for the community. And I want to ensure that the current planning decisions that are being made here do not compromise our potential in the future. So in light of that, my engineering and planning team have had a chance to review the development application materials, and they've pointed out a couple of concerns that we have at this point, especially relating to stormwater, noise, and sanitary services. The design of this particular industrial site proposes to be somewhat self-contained with respect to the stormwater management and also the sanitary as well, without a lot of consideration to the surrounding areas. And with respect to the stormwater, the water table in the area is quite high, and the plan proposes to bring fill in to raise the site quite a bit in order to achieve the stormwater solution. But there's no outlet at this point, and that was talked about a bit. I'd like to just clarify one little thing there. Steve Saker did called me and asked me about a stormwater outlet onto my property, through my property onto some water that's on the south side of it. I said we would have to check it out. So at this point, we have not entertained any drain at this point, but it is something that we could certainly take a look at and see what would be involved. But at this point, we don't know what that would be. The applicant is proposing an infiltration solution in the stormwater management pond as indicated. And the swim pond is proposed to be located right on the south edge of the property, immediately butting my particular lands. And so the question is, where is this water going to go? In our opinion, there's a chance that it's going to weep out of this particular property as it's a couple meters higher than our site, particularly if infiltration is being relied on solely. And I also have concerns about impact in the winter months when the ground is frozen as well. That could affect the way the water flows there also. So we're also kind of wondering how this self-contained stormwater management fits within the overall stormwater management plan. I know there was a plan done a number of years ago for the community, but we're not really utilizing that here, proposing to utilize that here at all. It's self-contained. With respect to noise, as indicated, the noise study recommends putting the noisiest types of the industry to the south side of the property. And the actual plan itself does not call for any noise barrier there at all. No berm, no barrier, no fencing, no noise attenuation controls whatsoever. That is the north edge of our property, and the site elevation is proposed to be significantly raised, so that'll negatively impact our ability to attenuate sound on this site in the future, as there will be a significant grade difference between the two sites. With respect to sanitary, we understand that private septic systems are being proposed as indicated, and From our understanding, the Middlesex Center official plan encourages that industrial development utilize full municipal services whenever possible. With the high water table on this site and the elevated site, it raises concern that sanitary could potentially leach out onto our site. We would also suggest that consideration be given for the ability to connect to municipal services which may be provided in Delaware in the future. And then just one other note here that I would bring to our attention is that the backs of the properties are facing Longwoods Road, and it would be a concern of ours that the rear of the property would be facing Longwoods Road. We would suggest that the elevations on Longwoods Road be made to look like they are the front elevation. So that's just another suggestion of ours or observation. So those are the end of my particular comments as the landowner, and I would look to Rick or Jay for any additional comments that they may have.
Well, through you, Madam Chair, if we can just add a couple of comments just from a little bit more detailed on the engineering side, things to look at. Jim referred to some studies that the municipality have done. You did a stormwater EA study recently for the municipality, and one of the areas was called the Longwoods Road commercial area, which includes these lands, and it came up with a preferred solution for an area stormwater management strategy, which was sort of to the west of these lands. And we know there was a notice of a severance application for some lands immediately to the west of these back in June or July. I'm not sure if that's advanced, but you know, with these types of developments advancing, utilizing that overall strategy may be of some value there. And so we just want to make sure that that gets some consideration, because that was what came out of that public process and the preferred solution. It's noted in the stormwater management report that currently only about 1.8 hectares of the land drains to the south, and the remainder of the 6.65 total area does not drain to the south. With the proposed stormwater management pond located where it is, all that land, all that water will be infiltrating at a concentrated point. And like Mr. Banman expressed, because that pond is raised up, that could easily weep out through the sidewalls and then end up flowing overland flow in a concentrated location. If the ground is frozen and that pond overtops, it's going to be concentrated in one area on the site. So, you know, these are some of the considerations that I've worked with Mr. McIntosh over the years, so he knows how to address these, but it's just some things that we want to make sure get addressed. And you know, the idea of a permanent piped outlet is obviously preferred, so you do have a solution if the ground is frozen, so that the water can be managed. And I know, you know, those are things that can be addressed. The high groundwater table, just in the geotechnical report, only identifies one readings and recommends more readings be done because the groundwater does fluctuate. And so the current proposed design, though it appears to be, you know, with adequate separation to the measurements done at the time, you know, it may not be in the future, and there's recommendations that additional groundwater monitoring be done and analyzed before a final design. So we would just want to make sure that that can be maintained. The other concern is that if this is a condo ownership, then the condo owners have to maintain this pond. There's been specific details written in the stormwater management report on recommendations to maintain the pond, removing materials because it will get silted up so that it won't be effective in allowing infiltration. And so part of the concern, if this isn't a municipal facility where it will be maintained by the municipality, enforcement of this by for the condo corp to maintain is a little tougher to do. So just a consideration if this is does go as a private development, something to consider. With regards to the septic system, same issues with the high groundwater table. Again, they're making reference in the reports that proper separation is required. And again, without doing the additional studies, you won't know where the high groundwater table is. And obviously you still need separation distance. And the nitrate loading is another item that's mentioned. And will need to be considered as part of this because of the high nitrates. And if this is it's a groundwater recharge area, it is a source for area wells. So the nitrate loading is a factor in that. On the noise, Mr. Bamman sort of indicated our concerns on the noise, that if this does move forward in the future and become part of the settlement area, the higher elevation of the industrial obviously makes noise controls a little bit more difficult to implement. So maybe something to consider. Like Mr. Bamman indicated, we're excited to see some development happening here. So hopefully some of these items can be addressed and work together to benefit everybody. So I'll leave that from the engineering point of view. And Jay, if you want to talk about some of the planning issues.
Thanks very much. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. Appreciate the opportunity to speak on behalf of Mr. Bamman. I'll be quite short. Jim's done an excellent job of identifying the concerns that we've identified through our review. Just wanted to speak, Mr. McIntosh had made a couple of comments with regard to the potential uses that may end up existing on the property. And while I don't disagree that some of the sizes of the lots may cater very well to a landscaper or something to that effect, the issue really lies in the ability to mitigate if it's not done on the property in the future, given the grade change that Jim and Rick have spoken about. And because the zoning has already been set, the municipality really isn't in a position to be able to determine at this point in time what those uses are within the range and expanse of the existing permitted uses. And I would also indicate too, nothing would prohibit a potential developer for industrial use to purchase 1, 2, 3, all of the lots on the south side to meet their needs with regard to the development should those lots still be available. So the municipality really does have to think about in the future how that does relate. And then it really boils down to what is the ability to mitigate the noise if it's not mitigated on site, off site in the future should additional land use changes occur. Those are my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If there's nothing else from the public participants, then I'll move to council. Do you have questions of staff or the presenter, the applicant? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Scott.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. Just probably some comments. I'm also kind of excited to see that somebody's interested in Delaware. I mean, we do definitely have a need for light industrial. We have a little bit of light industrial going on there now, that's been existing, and it creates some great employment because they're small and we're close to the 400 series. So I also think it's a great idea, but in light of the fact that we're doing the official plan amendment and we're right in the middle of it, and I think the end is somewhere in August, you know what I mean? It'd be nice to be able to make sure we do this. If we're going to do something like this, we can do it right and plan that all together. So like I said, I think it's a positive thing. I just think we need to make sure that all our T's are crossed and I's are dotted there before we jump into anything too big.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I have a question.
Excuse me, could I?
We don't hear you.
Oh, yes, Madam Mayor, could I?
Okay. Yeah.
Hello?
Hi, I just want to make clear, this is an information gathering session. We're not engaging in, back and forth, say, about specifics or details or discussions about which plan would be better, A, B, or C, or Y, or this. So that this is simply a public opportunity for us to get information and ask questions and make sure that we are clear about what's happening with this application. Okay, so we've had the presentations from everyone. The only thing that remains is then to receive this document, and we do have a motion before us to receive the application. The wording is that the report PLA 71-2020 be received for information. Do I have a mover and a second? Councillor Scott and Councillor Arts. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. That was the last planning item. The only thing that remains is, we did correspondence already, our bylaws, if I'm not mistaken. Right, I'm on track for change, right? We have 8 bylaws before us tonight. The motion before us is that bylaws number 2020-81 through 93 to 99 be adopted as printed. If I could have a mover for those. Councillor Scott and Councillor Shipley, all in favor? That is carried. And then we need a motion to adjourn at 9:18, moved by Councillor Scott, Deputy Mayor Brennan, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you, everyone. That was a longer than normal meeting, I think, for us lately, a pandemic meeting. So thank you, and we'll see